This is a 13 Wham News special report, a presidential visit.
Good morning, I'm Don Alhart. Welcome to our special extended coverage of the visit of President George W. Bush to Rochester, New York, more specifically out to Greece today. Air Force One should be in the air by now, should be touching down in about 15 minutes. We'll have complete coverage from now until the time the president leaves the Rochester area, so stay right here on 13 Wham News. We want to begin by introducing you to some of the people who are going to make this a very special day. As you see on the screen, Doug Embledge and Ginny Ryan. We're going to go to Doug first, who was out at the airport. I imagine a lot of excitement there this morning as people kind of anticipate what is going to be happening in just a few minutes now.
Yeah, that's right, Don, and we are told by the Secret Service that we are expecting an on-time touchdown for Air Force One about 10:15, so just about 14 minutes from now. You talk about the excitement. We saw some of the dignitaries and some of the folks who have been chosen to greet the president. They have been shuffled over to an area near his motorcade, which is to my left. We're at the U.S. Airports facility here, Don. This is a private air facility that the president will use today to greet some of those folks and then move on to Greece Athena High School. I'm going to step out of camera just for a second. We're going to look across to the main terminal, and you can see some of what you were just talking about. Way off in the distance there, you can see some of the folks both pressed against the airport terminal windows and some of the folks who have gathered outside along that little walkway area right before you enter the airport drop-off area and pickup area. Those are some of the folks who are hoping to catch a glimpse of the president today. I am hoping, Don, that they have with them some binoculars or perhaps a telescope, because it is a long way from where Air Force One is going to be, right near our stand right here.
I was going to say a little bit of a cloudy day, so I would think, normally we'd be looking out in the sky to see that plane landing. It's probably going to be close to the last minute before touchdown that we see it come through the clouds.
You will hear Air Force One for some time, I think, before you're able to see it today. It's a very low cloud deck today. Not ideal flying weather, and certainly not ideal weather for viewing the touchdown of Air Force One.
I hear a lot of noise behind you, and is that just excited people, or do we have some protesters out there? I know that's going to be part of our whole scenario today.
Yeah, no protesters anywhere near us. We are very secluded in an area that is reserved simply for the press and some of the VIPs, some of those with connections who are going to meet the president today. I'm on the back of a flatbed truck, along with about maybe 15 cameras from various media outlets in Rochester and outside of Rochester. This is where we were kind of huddled today, run through securities as you would expect. Several times all our equipment was checked, sniffed by dogs from the Secret Service. The Secret Service is here obviously enforced to make sure that the president is completely safe. Right in front of the flatbed truck is a gate, and in between our truck and the gate is maybe a couple dozen people who've gathered who have special access today to at least witness the president getting off of Air Force One.
Yeah. Doug, we're going to ask you to stay in place for a second. We're going to talk to you. Ginny's been waiting patiently in the little box right below you out at Greece Athena, and we've been talking about the weather and talking about the rain. And Ginny, I know I talked to some people who made their way into Athena this morning, and without being able, I guess, to take an umbrella in, it was pretty wet for some of them.
It was very wet. It's not very wet right now, Don, but did not stop people from lining up very, very early. As you can see, protesters and people who just wanted to see the president come out, children, mothers, fathers, people taking the day off of work, all wanting to catch a glimpse of President Bush coming here. It took on the appearance of a parade route, Don, coming down Long Pond Road. The protesters lined up as far north as Ladder Road and as far south as Fetzner Road, the road they presume the president will take here to arrive at Greece Athena about 11 p.m. For the students here, Don, it's something like a real-life civics lesson. Even those who don't get into the school will be able to just look out their window and see what it's like when the president comes to town.
I can see we see some of those protesters there, and I'm curious, any restrictions on the protest? Obviously, they're very close to you this morning, and hopefully cooperating to some extent, but it looks as though they've allowed people to get fairly close to at least where the coverage is taking place.
There is a fence. We are across the street from Greece Athena, and there is a fence keeping us off Long Pond Road, and I think it's keeping the protesters at bay as well. I cannot believe how many police officers are here and law enforcement agencies from different places keeping people in line and keeping the protesters at bay.
Can you give us a little sense of what it was like? Because I would imagine you went through pretty much, although you're not going into Greece Athena, what people had to do as far as parking and being shuttled to the site this morning. I know over Wegmans was kind of a staging area where people picked up those shuttle buses and were taken over.
Yes, visitors to see the president, the 1,600-seat auditorium actually parked at the Wegmans down the road and were shuttled in. And people were lined up at 8 o'clock this morning waiting to get into the auditorium. We were actually able to get onto the property at Greece Athena. We went through a couple security checkpoints, but we're able to get through. Police questioning us about why we were there and then letting us through. Yeah. Tight security, but it's manageable right now, and traffic is still running up and down Long Pond Road. For the most part, I think the curious coming to see what it's like when the president arrives.
Well, Jane Flash is one of those who is at Athena, already cleared security, and is inside the auditorium. Jane, we're looking at you now, and hopefully you can tell us a little bit about what the sense is, the mood. People have been in place for a couple of hours there, right?
Yeah, Don, there's a lot of excitement here. If you look around, there are about 1,600 seats in this auditorium. About maybe 100 or so have been removed to accommodate the media, but every other seat is full. It has been a process just getting to this point. Folks had to stand out in the rain at the front of the school 30 minutes or an hour or more in order to file through one of 3 walk-through metal detectors. After you walk through those detectors, you were also hand scanned. So that was the level of security even to get to this point. Now, as we said, pretty much every seat is taken here. If you look on the stage behind me, there are the president's special guests, more than 100 people who have invited to be up there. And right in the front row, you can see there are about 6 empty seats, 7 if you include the president. Those will be his very special guests. We are told his emphasis is on young people, 20, 30-somethings, young professionals. They are people who are coming here looking for specific answers from the president. Now, this is the president's 26th city in this Social Security stomping tour, if you will. So we already have somewhat of an idea what he might talk about. And in the past, he has not shied away from the most controversial part of this plan, and that is the private spending accounts, diverting some of your Social Security money into a private investment account. He is expected to talk about that at length today, to compare those to IRAs or 401ks in a way to kind of demystify them. So we'll see if he takes that same tact here today. Again, as I said, the auditorium is pretty well filled. We see some dignitaries starting to file in, so we get the sense that something may be happening here soon, although we know he has not touched down yet.
I was chatting with some people because you could bring a cell phone in, so I've talked to a couple of people who are already in place and sitting there. And I guess even in the audience, there's a red ticket, there's different color tickets, so the seating is very specified as to where people are able to sit in that auditorium.
You're right. There are the gold ticket holders, and those are the lucky people who get the prime seats right in the front rows, additional special passes for the people who are actually on stage, and then there are varying degrees of seats beyond that. We see people here with their cell phones making calls home, actually telling people, I'm here, I can't wait to see what's going on. And you see a lot of folks with cameras and some folks dressed up in red, white, and blue as well.
Right. Look at me. I'm right behind Jane Flash. Jane, we'll ask you to stand by there, and we're going to get back to you in just a moment. We want to share a background report that Jane had put together for us. President Bush's plan to save Social Security is generating a lot of controversy, but it's also generating a lot of questions. Everyone knows it involves private retirement accounts, but exactly how will they work and how much will they displace the traditional benefit? Jane takes a closer look at this report.
There's a reason President Bush surrounds himself with young people when he goes on the Social Security offensive. Workers who start out with the president's plan and pay into it their whole working life will make out better than they would have under the current Social Security system. A low-income worker paying for 50 years will get 120%, or 20% more than what they're promised today. Middle-income workers will get 105%. Even high-income workers will do slightly better than what they're promised today. The numbers come from the Private Enterprise Research Center, which has independently evaluated the president's plan. Dr. Thomas Saving says the key here is the term promised benefits, because the Social Security system is going broke.
They believe the current system's an option. Say, I'll just keep the current system. But the current system's not an option.
After the year 2017, Social Security will pay out more than it collects. By the time this infant is old enough to retire, Social Security payouts will equal all of the money in the U.S. Treasury. The president's plan works by basing benefits for middle and high-income workers on the growth in prices instead of the growth in wages. For example, somebody retiring in 2055 would earn $700 a month under the president's plan. Under the current plan, the benefits are closer to $1,000. But the Bush plan allows workers to make up the difference by investing a third of their payroll taxes in a private account.
We're going to take away some of what the current law promises you but can't deliver, and we're going to replace it with this personal account. And if we do that, we can make the sum of those two things as good as what the current law promises but can't pay for, but can't deliver.
What if the market crashes like after September 11th? According to the Private Enterprise Research Center, someone who invested in the S&P 500 index funds over the last 35 years and cashed out in 2002 on the market's lowest day would have earned more than 7% interest. On the highest day, almost 10%.
But here's where it gets tricky. Instead of raising taxes to pay for his plan, President Bush wants to charge you a fee. Before you can cash out your individual retirement account, you have to first pay the government 3% of your proceeds. Some say that's like reducing your benefits a second time.
And what about workers caught in the middle, not young enough to let their private accounts grow for 50 years? Instead of cashing out with 105% of what they would have had in the old plan, a middle-income worker who started a private account in their 40s or 50s would get only 90% of what they're promised under today's system, perhaps a lot less. And that makes this a hard sell for the president. In Rochester, Jane Flash, 13 WHAM News.
All right, we are looking now at a live picture out of the Rochester International Airport, and we are awaiting the arrival of Air Force One. We are told it is about ready to touch down. Kind of a cloudy day, so you are going to have to look, I think, until the last minute. As Doug pointed out a moment ago, we will probably hear it, if we can hear a microphone out there, hear it before we will see the actual touchdown of Air Force One. It looks like it's taxiing in now. It's already landed. There is Air Force One. A 747 that is bringing President George W. Bush to Rochester for his town meeting out at Greece, Athena, to talk about Social Security. There were some, not concerned, but I think the words of Terry Slabaugh at the airport, our airport director, curious to see how the 747 would handle the runway, rather short runway when you think of other airports and the fact we really don't have 747s on a regular basis coming into our airport. And I think, as he was saying yesterday, they're more concerned when this plane takes off about 12:15 or 12:30 today. They may have to go out and reset some of the lights. The thrust from those engines and the departure of that plane can kind of tip over some of the lights on the runway and create a little bit of havoc out there. But this is the arrival of Air Force One coming in to the greater Rochester Airport. As Doug Embridge mentioned a moment ago, a lot of people at the airport standing by the windows, trying to catch a glimpse of this plane as it taxis in. And a reminder, of course, we will have coverage throughout the morning. So as the president gets off his plane, limos that have been in place, the military transport planes bringing in all of the materials for this visit yesterday. So the limos, two limos actually. One will be used as a decoy. One will be the real limo that President Bush is in as he goes along the parade route. So for those hoping to catch a glimpse of the president, they're going to have to look very carefully, darkened windows on those limousines, and they will be making the route. The route has been kept a secret until now. If you're out about ready to go out in the Greece area right now, you will be well aware of where the president is going and how he's going to get there, because there will be roads shut down between the airport and Greece Athena to allow a smooth motorcade and make sure there are no interruptions. An historic moment when you think about it. The President of the United States coming to Rochester. As this day unfolds, we will hear a lot of opinions, people endorsing his plan, people opposed to the plan. We will share with you the protesters who are here. But that almost can wait in a way when you think about it. The fact that the sitting President of the United States is here, and that hasn't happened in quite a while as Air Force One taxis in. Doug Embridge has been out at the airport throughout this morning. Jenny is standing by over at Greece Athena as we prepare to welcome. Doug, I think you can hear me now. I hear you in the background.
Yeah, I sure do, Don. We're drowned out a little bit by Air Force One, which is about, I don't know, 40 yards from us, right? You see our camera position. I'm here with Kristen Miranda, who has spent the last few days out at the airport covering the preparations for this, both security-wise and the logistics of handling regular airplane passengers. Kristen noticed just a few minutes ago, maybe about 10 minutes ago, that airspace seemed very quiet and that we kind of theorized that the no-fly zone was in effect. When does that start? About 15 minutes before touchdown, Kristen?
It's about a 20-minute no-fly zone right around the time Air Force One does come into Rochester and also leaves Rochester. They have to make sure 0 commercial flights are in the air to make sure it's completely safe for the president to land.
So those folks who were concerned about delays, as you were reporting for the last few days, this is when the delays would take effect, and then again when the president gets ready to leave Rochester and go back to Washington.
This is exactly when they were talking about, mid-morning and then right around noontime, but they were hoping to minimize those delays to about 20, 30, or 40 minutes. And they've talked with the airlines to make sure people can get to their connections all right.
A little bit about the history, Don, of this airplane. It is a 747, one of 2 that was delivered by Boeing back in 1990 to replace the 707 that served for nearly 30 years. Boeing has actually been carrying U.S. presidents in some form or another since 1943. Little trivia for you, the first flight of a president on a Boeing plane was in 1943 when FDR flew to Casablanca. In 1962, during the Kennedy administration, Air Force One got its radio name. In other words, that's when they started referring to this plane as Air Force One. You can see the door is open now as they move the jetway out there. Air Force One is not technically a specific plane. It is simply a radio designation for whatever plane the president is on. That Air Force One that was delivered to JFK was the first jet. Some of the folks that are here to greet the president today, Governor Pataki, Maggie Brooks is here as well, John Auberger, the supervisor of Greece, Sheriff O'Flynn, local businessman David Flom, a supporter of the president's, also George Ann Shuffle, the local woman who is a literacy volunteer and will be honored by the president today. Also in that line is Cheryl Dinolfo, the Monroe County clerk. I think I said Maggie Brooks. And there's the governor really at the head of the line there that you see.
Doug, that presentation for George Ann is going to be made at the airport, correct?
It will be done right here, Don, actually. They said that they were going to have the presentation here, and then she will be going over to Greece, Athena, as well, to hear the president speak.
I've waited in the past for presidents to get off of Air Force One, Don, either here or in Buffalo or in Syracuse, and that's always really, for the folks covering at the airport, the big moment. How long will it be till he steps to the doorway you see there and comes down those stairs? You can see there are 2 limos in place. One of them will take President Bush, as you said, to Greece, Athena, and there's the President of the United States in Rochester.
Let's take a moment and just look at this and savor the moment. Coming out all alone from Air Force One for the moment. I want to see who's the first hand that he shakes. Will that be the governor, do you think? Or
I think the governor. There's the governor, John. The woman with the governor right next to the governor is in pink. I don't know if you can see her from this camera angle. That is the woman who is the president of the Genesee County Legislature.
Tom Reynolds, I see there greeting both the governors. Tom must have been on the plane this morning. He came down.
Yes, and there's Randy Cool as well, who is on the plane. A chance for the president to maybe wield some influence with the local members of Congress, hoping to get their support for his Social Security plan.
See Jim Walsh right behind there too in line. A lot of speculation that is really part of this trip, not necessarily only to win over the public, but to win over the support of those 3 Republican lawmakers who represent a good portion of this.
The last time George Bush was here, Don, was during his first campaign for president, as I recall, and that was a stopover at Hillside Children's Center. Came here for a very brief campaign stop, and to my recollection, that was the last time George W. Bush was in our town.
A lot of people to greet, and a lot of military presence there as well. As we share the pictures from the airport, he is really making an effort to greet almost everyone in sight.
And that was the greet, Don. You just saw it happen. The president has already moved into a limousine, and some of these other folks are who flew with him and were there to greet him are already being shuffled out, and they may become, it looks like they will become part of the motorcade now. Kristen, you were here yesterday when these this whole line of cars and vehicles came off of that military transport plane, that cargo plane that's still sitting on the runway now. A lot of equipment comes with the president.
A lot of equipment. We were surprised that that plane came in just after noon.
Doug, if I could just interrupt you and Kristen, it looks as though, is this Georgianne?
That is Georgianne Schaffel, Don. Thank you. We turn to our monitor now and we see what you are seeing.
Yeah,
we didn't before.
I believe he's making that presentation for the Literacy Volunteer Award right now.
That is what it is.
Well, maybe the decoy got into the limousine already. and certainly has fooled a few people out at the airport, I think.
He pulled a fast one on me. Actually turned around. There were a lot of men with salt and pepper hair and dark suits, Don, and I got fooled there. But now he has stepped into the limo. He did that. You saw that presentation lasted, a minute or so for the lady from Rochester. And again, this equipment that has been in Rochester for a day is about to do what it was brought here to do.
I was surprised, and Kristen, maybe you want to pick up again on this. I was surprised last night that we had, Mike Doria was out there. We really had access to take pictures of this and share the limousines that had arrived in advance.
Rest assured, though, Don, those vehicles were well protected while they were in the hangar here at U.S. airports. I would say it took maybe 20 minutes to half an hour to unload that military plane yesterday and get all of these vehicles off that plane. We just kept seeing vehicle after vehicle come out of the plane. We couldn't believe it could fit so many things inside. But the Secret Service has not left those vehicles alone for a second while they've been here.
Maybe worth noting, Don, that leading the way on this motorcade was a Monroe County Sheriff's Department red and white and a Grease police car leading the way. They know the way to Grease Athena, although my sense is the Secret Service knows the way to Grease Athena pretty well, too.
I wonder if we're going to see like a little shell game now where those limos will swap places so you never really know which one is carrying the president until he gets out to Greece.
One thing that always strikes me about these Secret Service details is, and I always notice that, in one of the SUVs are a couple of Secret Service agents sitting backwards with an open window. So I assume to be more in tune with what's happening around them, and you know, as we've seen in the past, I think ready to jump out and be alongside the president's vehicle if for any reason they need to be.
This is quite an entourage that is taking up. I was curious too, and there's probably no way to know this. The people that service that plane when it lands, put the blocks under the wheels and secure it, if they bring in people for that, or is that a local honor for some people that work at the airport every day?
That's a good question, Don. I don't know if the Air Force One crew is the ones who actually takes. I know there are folks who are the Air Force One crew who will be with this plane for the next couple of hours. I also know that the Secret Service has a Western New York detail that did a lot of the prep work, and then there's the detail that travels with the president. Kristen knows a little bit more about that.
Talking to Terry Slaybaugh, the director of the Rochester Airport yesterday, he said that the Secret Service and the folks that deal with the Air Force One bring with them absolutely everything that they will need. They don't want any surprises when they get to a certain location. So everything that they need comes with them, even equipment that they had to borrow. For example, equipment to get the president off the plane because this is such a large plane and we're not used to that here. All of those things are handled by Secret Service. They take care of absolutely everything.
4,000 square feet of floor area in the interior of that airplane, including quarters for the president and first lady, plenty of office space, including one office that can be converted in an emergency into a medical facility. They have enough food on board to serve 2,000 meals every time Air Force One takes off. Again, this is one of two 747s equipped to serve as Air Force One. For many years, about 30, it was a 707, and there was just one of them. Now there are two, although I don't know how often each one gets used, whether it's a 50-50 proposition or not, I do not know. The motorcade, Don, is on its way to Grease Athena High School now. From touchdown to when the motorcade left, I'm estimating we were about 7 or 8 minutes till the president was off the plane and out of here.
Operations out at the airport right now. Obviously, when that plane was approaching and landing, no flights going in or out. Flights can resume now until when the president is almost ready to depart?
They will likely resume shortly. I don't think they'll be back in the air right away. They'll give it a few minutes until the president gets out of the area. But then, yes, flights will be back to normal until it's time for the president to leave right around noontime. And again, there will be that 20-minute delay here at the airport.
Don, I'm seeing something curious now, and I'm going to have Will, our photographer, kind of go to these folks that are out on the tarmac. I am not certain, and I think it unlikely, that there's going to be a tour of Air Force One, but maybe there is.
It looks as though there will. They've kept the stairs down, and someone is waiting at the bottom of the stairs. So maybe, maybe not, but it looks as though there will.
See, now you can use my salt and pepper here. I could probably just walk back on the plane and no one would ask.
Dark suit and a red tie would help.
I see I'm all set for the day.
You know, I correct myself. I would be very surprised if there was going to be a tour, but what I do see is a photo op.
Yeah.
These folks are obviously folks who have some kind of connection that they are going to be allowed to have their picture taken in front of Air Force One. I think it highly unlikely for security reasons that anybody gets to step on board Air Force One during these presidential visits. It would simply be too much of a logistical nightmare for these folks.
You know, we talk about the size of this airplane, and all week we've been saying the Rochester airport doesn't usually take 747s. And I think for some people you think, well, the planes that come in here in Rochester are still pretty big. When you see the size of this aircraft, you can see that no, it is not anything similar to the size of many of the planes that come out of Rochester.
Don, real quickly, I'll go back to when the plane landed. We just caught, you saw it past that one plane. You saw it already on the ground. It dropped out of this lower cloud deck very quickly to the point where I looked over to on the horizon and saw the lights. And so it was only visible coming into Rochester for maybe 25, 30 seconds before it was actually on the ground.
Could you hear it?
We saw it before we heard it.
Okay.
And then it made a lot of noise.
When Will before zoomed into the cockpit, obviously we couldn't see the pilots, but I imagine I could see a little smirk on his face saying, see, I told you we could do this.
There was I will say there was plenty of runway left.
We're looking again at a shot of Air Force One. This is earlier, of course, when it did land at the Greater Rochester International Airport. And now here is the scene as it now really rests in place, waiting for the president to return in about an hour and a half from now.
Don, I'm thinking that motorcade is probably about a minute or two away from arriving at Greece Athena, because it is not, when you can shut down the roads for yourself, all that long of a drive.
Yeah, maybe we can bring Ginny in. I'm not sure if Ginny is able to talk to us right now. She, of course, Ginny Ryan, has been out at Greece Athena throughout the morning and will be awaiting the arrival of the motorcade. We have other crews out there as well. I guess they must know by now that the plane's on the ground and the president's on the way, Ginny.
They do know, Don. The big question is now which direction the president and his entourage will approach Greece Athena High School, from Ladder Road or from Fetzner Road. I have the first inklings that the motorcade may be approaching from Fetzner Road, getting off at Vintage Lane, because we've seen a few lead cars coming down Long Pond Road. There is a line of people from Fetzner Road all the way down to Ladder Road. It's taken on the appearance of a parade route with protesters, and we have become something of a magnet for the protesters, as you can imagine. I don't want to give the impression that it's all protesters here, but at this particular corner where the camera's out, they are here to get their message out. Evan Dawson has spent much of the morning here talking to people, and he found that there were some protesters, but there's also a lot of people who kept saying one thing over and over again: this is the chance of a lifetime.
Yeah, that's the one thing we hear all morning. And one thing important to remember as well, the president is here to talk about Social Security. Almost none of the protests have to do with Social Security. This is about the war to the protesters as well. But we should also tell you, when you look at the overhead shot, it's pretty well balanced out. When you see some of the shots, you can see a lot of supporters, people here waiting to greet the president as well. We should have some video as well. Interestingly enough, you can see the fence here that we're on, holding a lot of folks in. They have a rule in the town: you cannot post signs on the fence, and so about a dozen signs or so protesting and some flags had to be taken down earlier today. So you're seeing a very diverse group of people. Some people not ready to welcome the president, some people are, but most people peacefully protesting here, and a lot of people ready to welcome the president, which, as you said, could be just a few minutes away.
We were amazed by the number of children. I think you spoke to some young children today, supposed to be in school. They're not in school today, but this is the big event today in the town of Greece.
Yeah, we talked to some fourth graders who said it's great to be out of school. It's even better to see the president. And that was a little bit better to hear, that they're happier to see the president than be missing school. But a lot of enthusiasm. Some kids with their cheeks painted as well. And they're all wondering which direction the motorcade's coming from. But like you said, a few minutes ago, we saw a few police cars coming in from this end here. And we should be getting to see it in just a few more minutes.
Yeah.
I think there's a clear sign, Don. The motorcade is, in fact, coming down, approaching Greece Athena from Vantage Lane, heading north. We're going to take the mass cam shot. We have a state police helicopter overhead. We're going to break from our camera to get you a shot of the motorcade heading down. We've got a mass cam picture right now, and we're going to get a picture on the road. We've got Monroe County Sheriff's deputies turning into Greece Athena High School. We have a state police helicopter overhead. And indeed, we have the first signs of cars, Don, clearing the way for the president.
As I say, those looks like the advanced cars clearing the way, so I would imagine that motorcade is not too far behind. The president, there's the state police helicopter, of course, surveying the area. As we mentioned, a very impressive level of security, which is all around Greece Athena, and people being carefully screened, going through metal detectors, and having belongings searched before they could even get into the auditorium this morning.
Indeed, Don. As early as 8 o'clock this morning, we saw police lining Route 390, the presumed route, the easiest route, the most direct route the president would take. State police cars, vans, and they were not only lining 390, but the exit ramps along the way. I think just letting folks know that they were out. The other interesting thing, Don, and something that I hadn't really considered until I arrived at the school, was the number of homes that rim the school and the neighborhoods that police had to infiltrate this morning to make sure that people were not going through backyards and going through people's homes to get access to the school. It's not an easy perimeter to secure when you think about the aspect of a neighborhood and open yards and fields.
Do we see a lot of people perhaps hoping that it would come down their street, setting up in the front yard and kind of waiting? We obviously see them along this final portion of the route where they know for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. People with blankets and chairs and American flags. I mean, all I could think of today was Memorial Day in a few days. It looked like the parade coming down, you know, Long Pond Road in Greece. And, of course, we've got a lot of protesters who came out as well. I witnessed one very heated exchange this morning between a father clutching the hand of his young daughter and a protester against the war in Iraq. It was just the three of us standing there, and the father just completely went up to the protester and basically told him that he was wrong, he was the enemy. The protester looked a little bit startled, but it said to me how passionately people feel on both sides of the issue, whether you're clutching the hand of a small child or whether you're clutching a sign saying that you're against the war. People feel very passionately, and I think this is a great snapshot of the polarization of the issues we're talking about today.
And that's really what we have to do when we look at the whole picture. The fact is the President of the United States is coming to our community today, and there is an opportunity for expression of those who not only support Social Security, those who oppose it, but those who support the administration in other ways and oppose other policies as well. So it's
exactly, this is what it's all about. I'm standing next to a group of high school students from Greece Olympia who, to their own admittance, skipped class today to come on in and see what this was all about, but to also protest. They're holding up signs, you know, referencing a soldier who's serving in the war, and they too want to get their message out. A handful of students were chosen from each school to see the president. These students were chosen to speak, but there is representation among all the high schools, the middle schools, and the elementary schools. Isn't that right, Evan?
Yeah, Don, in fact, I want to tell you, one student told me that if I can't be Don Alhart and I can't be Maggie Brooks, I can be on the road watching him come in. I got a laugh out of that because he said, I can't get in there. Now, some folks were disappointed they couldn't get in, but they know that this is their best chance to see their motorcade.
Yeah.
And we are getting, I think, what are the headlights of the entourage heading down Long Pond Road from Vantage Lane, just about maybe 500 yards from the school. But as you saw, Don, there's quite a number of lead cars following the president, and who knows, maybe we're looking at the decoy.
A late school bus coming in.
It does not appear to be a decoy limousine, and by my estimations, it only took about 5-7 minutes to reach Greece Athena from the airport.
It's like motorcycles. We're seeing motorcycles now, Jenny. So I imagine that's the advance portion, and we see some vehicles now. It was interesting. I think, and they may have moved the limousines. I think he may have been in the second limousine.
There it is, Don.
There
it is.
Yeah, both of the limousines.
We've got two
now.
limousines approaching Greece Athena High School right now. We've got cheers and jeers for the president as he pulls into the high school.
Think of how many times, what do we say? This is the 26th city that he has done this. 26 schools or public buildings and limousine rides into communities that perhaps, like us, have not seen a sitting president in a good number of years. And interesting for us to witness all of this unfold.
Yeah. And the word we kept hearing over and over again, the chance of a lifetime, either to see the president or to get your message heard. I'm struck by the irony that the president didn't even pass by the corner that we were on. So the folks here are clearly here to make a statement and not to be seen or heard by the President of the United States. My best bet is, Don, that the President will be entering the Performing Arts Center from the side entrance. There was a tent over the side entrance. We're looking right now at the front entrance of the school, but my best estimate is that the President will be entering from the side where there is a safe passage for him.
We were just looking at a picture inside the auditorium. Of course, Jane Flash is inside and awaiting the arrival, and we seem to be focusing on the door that perhaps we believe the President will be coming in. But you can see people now have been waiting there patiently for a couple of hours, getting there very early this morning. I'm not sure if Jane is available for us to...
Yes, Don, I am
Jane,
here.
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, people have been here for a couple of hours waiting. There was some fine entertainment here, some members of the Grease Choir singing patriotic songs, but that stopped about maybe 15 minutes ago, and at one point some patriotic music was played, and everybody stood up expecting the President to arrive, but we could see from our monitors here that he was just arriving at the airport. Now, it appears some of the entourage is coming in right now. These are folks who travel with the President, it looks like. It does not look like yet any dignitaries arriving, but we can look through the door and see the state police special van, security van there. We also see some of what appears to be the national press that travels with him arriving. They are setting up in a different location from where we are now. We also could see that the presidential motorcade had pulled into the front of the building. We are not sure which entrance he is arriving in, but so far we do not see the President here yet. The folks are waiting on stage, the folks that got the gold tickets, the special passes, but we have yet to see any of the 6 people the President has handpicked to speak with about this issue of Social Security. So there's a lot of anticipation here. People are holding up their cameras and their camera phones, ready to take a picture should he walk in the door, Don.
Couple of options here, I guess. He could come in the door that we're looking at now, which would bring him right into the auditorium and stage. He could probably thrill a lot of people by coming in the front door and stopping in the office and greeting people, but I imagine, too, all of that would have to have been cleared by security, that almost any corridor that he might go down in that school today.
And it certainly would have. We get the indication that is not the case because this is really a whirlwind trip. He's only in town for a couple of hours tops, so there really hasn't been a lot of time set aside to do that. We do know that he's meeting with some family of some of the military folks who have served in Iraq. The Shram family, their son was killed over in Iraq. We do not know, maybe that is happening right now behind the scenes. We do not see them in the auditorium yet. So
have they given people in the auditorium
before he comes in here?
Jane, have they given people in the auditorium a sense of when things are going to start? Is it they're aiming for 11 o'clock, or if he gets there earlier, would they perhaps start at that point?
You know, Don, nothing has been said. There has been no announcement other than to turn off your pagers and your cell phones, but there's been no announcement as to when he might be coming, when we can expect him. Again, folks are kind of standing up and looking around. They tend to be watching the monitors of the media just to see what we know and if we know something before they do.
Going to see if we can bring in Ginny again. I'm not sure where Ginny is in relation to this, but Ginny, we do see some protesters being removed.
Yes. We are witnessing the physical removal of 2 or 3 protesters. A man prone right on his stomach had to be picked up by Greece police and handcuffed. They had somehow infiltrated the grounds of Greece Athena. We are across the street. Protesters are not allowed to cross the street. These 2 protesters against the war in Iraq somehow crossed the street and were physically removed from the premises. Police and several motorcycles came by, picked the men up, handcuffed them, and now they're being put in the back of police cars and removed from the property. The mounted patrol officers also came when there was word that these protesters would not leave as the President arrived.
So they obviously moved very quickly on that,
They
probably
sure did.
Almost anticipating that possibility, I would think.
Yeah, I was quite surprised, Don, that they were actually able to cross the street with a number of police officers here. But as I said, there's fields and there's woods, so somehow these folks may have gotten a little bit too close for comfort.
It'll be interesting inside, as we said. All of the tickets for this event coordinated through Congressman Tom Reynolds' office. So I would imagine, and you had to give Social Security numbers, people very carefully monitored, but I would imagine, too, they are prepared for any event inside. If someone has an expression they want to make, they may well do that. We're looking again inside. Looks like people are in place, Jane, on the stage and waiting very patiently. And with the advance arrival of a few folks, they must know it's pretty close right now.
Yeah, the folks are kind of looking around up there. They've been on that stage under those lights for a good hour or more now. Folks are really kind of anxious, I think, for things to begin here. Again, we have not been given any indication that the president's arrival is imminent. We know he's here somewhere at the school, but the music has not picked up its pace or anything like that. They may, in fact, be waiting for some of the members of the national media to get set up and ready to go. We see that's pretty much finished happening. So hopefully at some point soon, we will get an indication that he is here.
Jane, once people have been allowed into that auditorium, are they pretty much confined to there until the president leaves? Do they have any opportunity to go out and use facilities or do anything? Or are they pretty much in there?
Well, they have been allowed to do that up until this point.
Okay.
A short time ago, everybody was told to take their seat and be ready. And I do know, just from covering other presidents and dignitaries in the past, that it's often protocol when the president arrives and leaves that no one is allowed to leave or come or go from the auditorium as another measure of security. That has not been announced to anyone here, but that appears to be the protocol that they're following today.
I'll take a moment to bring in Mark Guerin, who is president of Hobart and William Smith College, a former director of the Peace Corps. More important,
Ellie, I think we're going.
Hang on, before we do, it looks like he's arrived, huh?
No, that false alarm there, Don. He has not arrived.
Let us know as soon as he does.
I apologize for interrupting.
No problem. We're going to talk to Mark for just a moment, and more directly now with your role with the Clinton administration in communications. I'm just curious as to the work that must go into putting something like this together, and as we have said, carefully crafting an audience that will be supportive of what the president is saying.
That's right. I think what you saw when the president getting off the plane, the members of Congress, Congressman Reynolds, Congressman Walsh, Congressman Kuhl, I believe Karl Rove was there. The politics surrounding this exceeded just the events in that auditorium that will unfold with this speech, but also the Republican members of Congress that the president obviously flew up with. I'm sure he visited with them in his private quarters and office, and is doing some lobbying about his Social Security proposal.
All right. I see our Monroe County Sheriff, Patrick O'Flynn, which I would assume would mean the president is probably almost in the building. He obviously has arrived, and we're going to share that shot as well. Mark will remain with us throughout the morning so we can kind of analyze the scene at Greece Athena and share with you what is taking place. Here is the stage that has been set since early this morning. Jane Flash will be there not only throughout the speech, which we will carry live and uninterrupted, so you won't have to listen to us analyze it as it goes along, but I think more importantly, Jane will be there and able to talk to some of the people afterwards before they leave to get a little idea. I'm just trying to picture coming in on Air Force One. This is the 26th city. You almost have to sit down and say, here's where you're going, remember these people, and really customize each visit like that.
Each visit has an extensive advance crew. Of course, Air Force One is equipped with all communications, secure phones, non-secure phones, 19 televisions, 85 telephones, a working office of the White House. So that coordination done by the advance team of the White House communications office, really briefing the president, making sure that his speech and everything is attended to.
I can remember years ago when Governor Rockefeller would come to town. I'm not sure if it was true or not, but people would say on the plane, they had like a notebook with pictures, and they would show him, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so, so that when he stepped off that plane, he could grab somebody's hand, look them right in the eyes, and say their name, which is probably the most flattering thing that could happen.
I suspect right before the president went out, his aide went in and went through that receiving line from the governor to the various officials greeting him to remind him and refresh his memory.
As you see things unfold this morning, pretty much what you would expect. We've seen some protesters, almost Rochester style. We've had two so far. That's kind of you expect some protests, you expect some arrests, and nothing out of control.
It's normative, certainly. It's a great thing about our country to have the opportunity for discourse and open conversations. It seems orderly, and I think the president would anticipate that in all of his cities that he's visited.
Let's see if we can go back inside Greece. I'm kind of curious just to see what things look like inside there as we await the arrival. And Jane, this may well be the time when he's meeting with some of those military families, do you think? Because he's obviously at the facility at some location.
Yes, he is, Don, and we did see some of the people who traveled with him in the motorcade arrive. Maggie Brooks, who is the Monroe County executive, she is here now. There are some members from the U.S. Attorney's Office. We see a little movement up on the stage. It appears that they are preparing to get started here, but we've yet to see the governor and some of the closer members of the entourage arrive, which means they're here at the school somewhere, but they are just not here in the auditorium yet.
Have we been briefed at all as to who will speak first, who will introduce the president? Does he just come out? Does it follow the pattern pretty much of the other cities?
He may, in fact, follow the pattern of the other cities in which he just came out and started talking. He will address the audience about his proposal, about what's wrong with Social Security for a good maybe 15 minutes or so before he actually gets involved in the town meeting part of this, which is meeting with some 6 different young entrepreneurs who will be on stage with him and explore their thoughts about what they think about their retirement and what concerns that they have. It is somewhat of an orchestrated event, and none of the 6 people who will talk to him will be allowed to go on a large, give a dissertation, so to speak, or anything like that. It's very much question and answer, at least if this follows the format of past cities.
And we know those people on stage pretty much represent a cross-section of what they want in terms of people affected by Social Security and perhaps more importantly, the future generations. I know there was some emphasis in getting mothers and daughters and mothers and sons and that type of mix on stage.
You're exactly right, and some of the people who were given those gold tickets were single mothers, for example. You know, what will they be doing for their retirement when they have all the pressures of raising a child alone? It kind of shows where the Republicans are going in sort of being more inclusive of some of the other groups, and I think if you kind of pan along and look at some of the faces on that stage, you will see that there's been a big effort to do that. Things have gotten very quiet here all of a sudden, and I'm not sure why that is. It could be in anticipation, or here we go.
All right, this may be the moment, and we're about ready to welcome the President of the United States to Greece Athena High School to present his case for his plan for the future of Social Security in America.
Or maybe another false alarm, Don.
People get quiet. They've been listening to you. You may be the star there, Jane, before all of this is done.
There was just an announcement to make sure pagers and cell phones are turned off, and it appears we're getting ready to go.
Okay. Someone is coming across the stage now.
The program will begin shortly. Thank you.
And just to tell us that. So
it is live television there, Don.
Yeah, we know it's not long. I'm not sure if we still have the shot outside. I'm curious with Jenny to see how the protester situation has. It looks fairly quiet now. We had one incident.
All right, Don.
Yeah.
Well, we are still out here. The folks that came out just to see the presidential motorcade are leaving, but the folks who came out to get their message across are still here, and they are still protesting with signs in hands. As you can see, the crowd has diminished, I don't know, from your judgment, substantially since when the motorcade was arriving, and I'm not sure if those same folks, many of them in the adjoining neighborhoods, just came up for a walk. They may come out to see the president leave as well.
Yeah. Here is Congressman Tom Reynolds coming in at this point inside, and the President of the United States. Let's take you now live to our coverage.
Thank you. Please be seated. Please be seated. We're going to start. Thank you. Welcome to the Athena Performing Arts Center. Today we have come to talk about the future. In Greece, a town I'm proud to represent in Congress, we are working together to make our future more secure. In this post-9/11 world, when we talk about a secure future, we're not only talking about keeping our nation and our homeland safe, but it is also about economic security, retirement security. America is fortunate to have a leader who has the strength and resolve to fight to keep our families and communities safe, and who has shown the compassion and determination needed to ensure a secure economic future for all generations. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce and welcome to Greece, New York, the 43rd President of the United States, George W. Bush.
Good job. Really good job. Thank you all. Go ahead and be seated. Stay seated. You're doing it. Be seated. Thank you. We got to get to work. Thank you all for coming. Please be seated. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the warm welcome. And thanks for caring about the future of our country, because that's what we're here to discuss. Before I get to the Social Security issue, I do want to thank some people. First, I want to thank the Greece Athena Middle and High Schools for letting us use this fantastic facility. It really is beautiful. Yeah. It's a fantastic place, isn't it? Yeah. I want to thank Helen Wall and Dick Snyder. Helen is the principal of the high school. Dick Snyder is the principal of the middle school. I want to thank all the teachers. I want to thank the superintendent. I want to thank all the folks who care a lot about making sure the kids get educated here in this part of the world. I'm sorry Laura's not here. Yeah, you probably would rather have her here than me, wouldn't you? Anyway. Well, I know, but you thought it. You didn't say it, but I could tell you thought it. You're not the only person here who feels that way, I want you to know. She's doing great. She's on a trip promoting the freedom agenda. She's made it very clear to people in the Middle East, you can't have a complete society unless women participate fully in the society in the Middle East. I'm really proud of her. And I'm a fortunate man that she said yes when I asked her to marry me back in Midland, Texas. She's a great First Lady. I'm looking forward to having her come home tonight, back to the White House. I thank Congressman Tom Reynolds. He's an effective United States congressman who cares a lot about this district. I'm proud to call him friend. I'm proud to call Congressman Shirley Bullard friend as well. Sherry is from the district next door. I've known him for a long time. He's a good, thoughtful man who's a fine United States congressman. Congressman Jim Walsh is with us today. He, too, is a fine United States congressman. And I was proud to be traveling with Congressman Randy Cooley. He's a freshman member of the House of Representatives, doing a great job. Thank you all for coming. They wanted to ride on Air Force One. I was proud to make room for them. They want to ride back on Air Force One. And they probably want a meal on Air Force One. So save up your appetite, fellas. You got a good meal coming. I want to thank all the state and local officials who've joined us today. I'm proud you're here. There's two athletes in the audience I want to pay a recognition to. First of all, a person you all know well, really a fine member of the community, member of the NFL Hall of Fame, Jim Kelly. Thank you for coming. Good to see you again, Jim. And at the other end of the age spectrum is a fine athlete from this part of the world. I just met her. As you know, I'm a baseball person. I love baseball. The fact that somebody would pitch a perfect game at any level of baseball is amazing. The fact that a person would pitch a perfect game and strike out every batter is even more amazing. So welcome a fantastic pitcher in the representing the Dodgers baseball team from Little League Baseball, Katie Brannell. Thanks for coming. And finally, one other person before I get to the topic at hand I'd like to introduce is a woman named Georgianne Schaufel. Georgianne is a volunteer. And the reason I bring up people who volunteer is I want to remind you that the true strength of this country lies in the hearts and souls of our citizens. That if you want to be a participant in America and in the future America, volunteer to make somebody's life better. Feed the hungry, help find shelter for the homeless. Georgianne is involved with the Literacy Volunteers of Rochester program, helping somebody learn to read. I can't think of a better way to pass on a gift from one generation to the next than to mentor somebody, particularly somebody who needs to learn to read. My point is this: serve your community and serve your country by taking time out of your busy lives to volunteer to make somebody's life better, to answer that universal call to love a neighbor just like you'd like to be loved yourself. I don't know where Georgianne is. Where are you, Georgianne? Thanks for coming. Thanks for being a great role model. We got a lot to do in Washington, D.C. One of the big issues, of course, is Social Security. Although yesterday there was some progress made, I'm pleased that the Senate is moving forward on my judicial nominees who were previously being blocked. These nominees have been waiting years for an up or down vote on the Senate floor, and now they'll get one. It's about time we're making some progress. It's important for this nation to address issues. I believe the job of the president is to confront problems, not to pass them on to future presidents or future generations. I believe my job in representing everyone who lives in this country is, if I see a problem, is to say to the United States Congress, let's work together to solve the problem. And folks, we got a problem when it comes to Social Security. First, let me start by saying that Franklin Roosevelt did a good thing when he created the Social Security system. Social Security has been an important part of a lot of people's lives in America. The Social Security system created by Franklin Roosevelt provided a safety net for people in their retirement, and it worked. There are a lot of people still in this country counting on their Social Security check. And therefore, I want to start by saying to people who are getting their check, people who were born prior to 1950, the system will not change when it comes to you. The system has got plenty of money in it to make sure you get your check. And the reason I have to say that is because I understand how the Social Security issue has worked in the past. Somebody like me talks about it, and then somebody comes in behind by telling seniors really what he's saying, he's going to take away your check. That's old-style scare politics, but it is a part of the American system. And so people ought to got to understand when we start talking about Social Security, to strengthen the Social Security system for generations to come, to deal with the problem I'm about to describe to you, that if you're a senior in Greece, New York, you're going to get your check. It's the folks coming up that you need to worry about. See, if you're a grandmother, you're going to get your check. You need to be worried about your grandson. And we're about to talk to a generation of folks from this part of the world about Social Security. Now, here's the reason I'm being able to bring it up. That the pay-as-you-go system in Social Security is confronting some serious demographic difficulties. Now, the system is pay-as-you-go. That means when you pay in, we go ahead and pay out. Like your payroll tax goes into not into a trust that we hold for your account. Your payroll tax goes into account, and we pay out the money for the retirees, and with any money left over, we spend it on general government. It's important for people to understand that aspect of Social Security. In other words, it's not a trust. In other words, we're not taking your money and holding it for you and then giving it back to you when you retire. We're taking your money, we're spending it on current retirees, and in that more money is coming in that needs to go out for the retirees, we're spending on other programs. And all that's left behind in Social Security is a group of file cabinets with IOUs in it. That's the way the system works. It's called pay-as-you-go. Now, what's going to change from today in terms of the pay-as-you-go system is that there's a lot of people getting ready to retire. I happen to be one of them. At least I reached retirement age in 2008. I like to remind people that's a convenient date for me. Particularly the end of 2008. And there are a lot of people like me. We're called the baby boomers. I'm looking at some baby boomers out there. As a matter of fact, by the time the baby boomers fully retire, there's going to be over 70 million of us getting paid by younger workers who are paying through payroll, our retirement through payroll taxes. Today, there's about 40 million retirees. So you see, a lot more people are going to be having to be taken care of in the retirement system through the pay-as-you-go system. And not only that, we're going to live longer than the previous generation. And not only that, our benefits are going to rise faster. At least the promised benefits will rise faster than a previous generation. So you got a lot of people who will be living longer, getting paid greater benefits, with fewer people paying into the system. In 1950, there were some 16-to-1 workers paying into the system for each beneficiary. Today, there's 3.3 workers per every beneficiary. Soon, there's going to be 2 workers for every beneficiary. So I think you're beginning to get a sense of the math. A lot of us are going to get greater benefits. We're going to live longer with fewer of the young people paying in the system to take care of us. Now, what ends up happening under that type of system is that in 2017, the system starts to go into the red. More money going out than coming in on Social Security benefits. For Social Security benefits related to payroll taxes. And it gets worse every year. 2027, it's projected will be $200 billion in the hole. $200 billion more benefits going out than payroll taxes coming in. Every year worse after that until 2041. All those the paper in those file cabinets in West Virginia are just eaten up, bankrupt. The system's bust. What we're asking youngsters to do is to contribute money through payroll taxes into a system that'll be broke in 2041 unless we do something about it. And so that's the problem, and it's a real problem. My friend Tim Penny, former congressman from Minnesota, is going to describe the problem to you in further detail. Now, I have a duty not only to describe the problem, I believe I have a duty to come forth and say, let's do something about it, and here's some ideas to the United States Congress. I did it. I stood up in front of the Congress at my State of the Union. I said, here's a problem, by the way, here's some ideas. All ideas are on the table, except running up the payroll tax rate, which I think would hurt the economy. All ideas are on the table. Bring them forward. And then I further refine that by talking about some of these ideas. And the reason I'm doing this is because I understand if we wait, it costs $600 billion a year more every year we wait. It's called progressive indexing. That's a Washington kind of thing, you know. It says that if you're in the, for example, a guy named Posen, who Tim knows well, came up with this concept. It said that if you're a poorest 30% of the workers, nothing will change in terms of how your benefits increase. Right now, the benefits, by the way, increases are tied to wages. If you're the top 1% of workers in terms of income, your benefits would increase by the rate of inflation, not by the rate of wage. Your benefits increase, but not as fast as the folks at the bottom end of the spectrum. And if you're in between, depending upon your income, your benefits will increase somewhere between the rate of wage and the rate of price. Now, incredibly enough, structuring the system this way when it comes to benefit increases will get about a significant portion of the problem permanently solved. I think it makes sense for Congress to consider this idea. It says you'll get a benefit equal to or greater than the previous generation, that at the very minimum your benefit will grow at the rate of inflation. If you're poor, your benefit will grow at the rate of wage increases, and that you won't retire into poverty. And there are other things we can do to permanently solve the problem completely. I say permanently solve it because you might remember 1983. Were you in the Congress then, Tim? Yeah, first term in the Congress. Tim came together with others. Ronald Reagan was the president. Tip O'Neill was the speaker. We had a problem in Social Security. They came together and put together what they called a 75-year fix. Here we are 22 years later. The 75-year fix didn't stick for 75 years. It's time to fix this deal once and for all. And there are some good ideas I put on the table. Let me tell you one other good idea that I want people to think about before we get to our panelists here, our folks we're going to be discussing this issue with. And that is that I think that as we permanently solve the system, that we ought to make it a better deal for younger workers by allowing younger workers to take some of their own payroll taxes and set it aside in what is called a voluntary personal savings account. First, notice I said voluntary. In other words, the government should say to a younger worker, if you want to, you can put some of your own money aside. You don't have to. If you're uncomfortable with watching your money grow through a conservative mix of bonds and stocks, you don't have to do that. You can keep it the way, into the system. And you'll get your check. If you're in the bottom 30%, your benefits over time will grow with wages. If you're in the top 1%, they'll grow with inflation. And if you're somewhere in between, they'll grow depending upon your income, but greater than the rate of inflation. Secondly, it's called a personal account. That means you own it. It's an account the government cannot take away. So why would we do this? Why would we think of this idea? Well, first of all, with your money in your payroll taxes, after all, it's your money, is earning about a 1.8% rate of return over time in the Social Security system. You can do better than that. You can do better than that with T-bills, which have very little risk to them, if any at all. You can do a lot better than that in a conservative mix of bonds and stocks. I mean, they say that over time, you should be able to average at least 4.6%. Now, over a lifetime, that is a significant amount of money relative to the 1.8% because money compounds, money grows. For example, if you're making $8 an hour and you put your money in, and you're allowed to set aside a third of your payroll taxes, $8 an hour over your life, and you're allowed to set a third of your payroll taxes aside in a personal savings account, and you earn the 4.5% rate of return, which is definitely achievable, particularly when you look at the history of a conservative mix of investments. By the time it comes, you reach retirement age, you'll have earned $100,000 in your nest egg. That will be a part of your Social Security retirement system. So you'll get benefits out of the current system, out of the system that's reformed. Plus, you got $100,000 that you call your own. If you're, say you're a police officer and a nurse and they enter the workforce in 2011 and you set aside money and you make, the average salary those folks make over time, and you set aside a third of your payroll taxes, both of you do, by the time both retire, they have about $669,000 in a personal savings account. Money grows over time. The higher the rate of return, the more faster your money grows, and the more you end up with. A lot of people are able to understand that. You know why? Because we're into a 401k culture. When Penny and I were growing up, we didn't have 401ks. The other day, I was in an automobile manufacturing plant in Mississippi. I'm sitting with a lot of line workers. I said, how many of you got 401ks? A lot of hands went up. A lot of people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, now understand what it means to watch your money grow. This isn't a new concept that's in American society. This is something that's taken place throughout all of society. And I think it makes sense to understand the investor class doesn't belong to a privileged few, but the investor class ought to be extended to everybody who lives in America if that's what you want, if that's what you choose. I like the idea of somebody saying, here's your asset, and you can leave it to whomever you want. And the more people who are able to do that in our society, the better off society is. See, I think government ought to promote an ownership society. We ought to encourage more people to own their own home. Encourage entrepreneurs to be able to take risk and own their own business. And in this case, encourage Americans from all walks of life, if they so choose, to manage their own retirement account. And I say manage it. You know, it's your money. You're going to have some choices to make when it comes to a personal savings account. You can't take it to the lottery, by the way. You know, notice I've been stressing conservative mix of bonds and stocks because we want this account to grow and be a part of a modern safety net for you in your retirement. And so there'll be some guidelines. And I can predict to you that it works because a lot of other people have watched their money grow in the same kind of accounts, including people who work for the federal government. See, we have got what in Washington what's called a thrift savings plan. And members of the United States Senate, for example, can choose, if they so desire, to set aside some of their own money in a personal savings account, a voluntary personal savings account. And a lot of people like it. I think I was doing one of these events with Senator McCain, who told me that his rate of return on his money was like 7% over the last 20 years. That's a lot better than the 1.8% we now get for you in the Social Security system. And so my attitude about this issue on thrift savings plans, when I speak to members of the Congress, is pretty simple. If the idea of taking some of your own money and setting it aside in a conservative mix of bonds and stocks is good enough for you, Mr. Senator, it is good enough for workers all across the United States of America. You'll be happy to hear Senator McCain agrees with me because he's seen his money grow. Now, a personal savings account would be a part of a Social Security retirement system. It'd be a part of what you would have to retire when you reach retirement age. As I mentioned to you earlier, we're going to redesign the current system. If you've retired, you don't have anything to worry about. It's the third time I've said that. I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda. But if you choose to have one of these accounts, notice I keep saying, if you choose, the government's not going to tell you you have to do this. I think the government ought to give you the opportunity to set up one of these accounts, and the account becomes a part of your retirement plan. It's your own asset. It's something you leave to somebody, whomever you choose. And it makes the system eminently more fair. Now, with those thoughts in mind, we got a problem, and here's some ideas on how to solve it. I've asked Congressman Tim Penny, right out of the state of Minnesota, a person who's followed this issue a lot. He happens to be of a different political party than I am, but nevertheless, we both share the common goal of doing our duty as involved citizens to permanently solve the problem of Social Security today. Welcome, Congressman. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned earlier that you were bringing me along to sort of add some additional perspective to this issue, but there's little more that needs to be said given the description that you've just provided, because you've laid out very effectively where we're at and why change is needed. I would simply reinforce some of what you've said. Doing nothing is not an option, and unfortunately, on this issue, there seems to be a loud chorus of folks that are just saying no to virtually everything that you've put forward, and that's unfortunate because we need a dialogue on this issue, and the sooner the better. You know, this program is 70 years old this summer on August 14th. Social Security will celebrate its 70th birthday, and we really need to talk about where we want this program to be 70 years from now. And I don't think we want to be right back at the same place 70 years from now talking about more cuts and splices and patches to kind of keep the program afloat, because we've done a lot of that over the last 70 years, and what it's meant is that for each succeeding generation of workers, we pay more and more payroll taxes into this system, and then none of it gets saved in our own name to help provide for our own retirement, which then means we rely on the next generation of workers to put even more money in to take care of our needs. And at some point, I think we've got to get ahead of that curve, and that's what this debate is all about. A lot has changed since 1935 when this program was created. It was created at a time when we needed a safety net for senior citizens. It was created as an insurance program to protect seniors from impoverishment in old age. And the reason it was an insurance program is because back in 1935, most Americans did not expect to live to age 65 or to draw any benefits under this program, but if they got to that age, they wanted to make sure that they had some kind of a safety net they could fall back on. Average life expectancy then was 60. Today, average life expectancy is about 80. And so we know that we're going to live well into retirement, and we're counting on Social Security to be a piece of our retirement income. And so the program has had that change over time. You talked about the demographic shifts that have occurred. When we were born, there were about 15 workers for every retiree in American society. And so the old system with a relatively small payroll tax rate could support those retirees at a decent level. By the time Medicare was created in 1965, there were only 6 workers for every retiree, and not surprisingly, the payroll tax was quite a bit higher by then in order to keep the program in the black. Today there are 3.5 workers for every retiree, and the payroll taxes are even higher, 12.5% on the first $90,000 of income. And as you said, by the time the baby boom generation, our generation, is fully retired, in the year 2030, there will be about 2 workers for every retiree. And if we keep fixing this the way we've always fixed it, it'll mean simply higher payroll taxes on the next generation of workers to keep enough money flowing. You also referenced 1983, and that leads to my second point. First point is doing nothing is not an option. And the second point is that doing something sooner is better than later. And that's why I applaud the fact that you've put this on the front burner, because it's better to deal with this now, several years ahead of the financial crunch in this program, than to wait until the last minute. Because the last time we fixed this was 1983, my very first year in Congress, and we had no good options at that point. We basically had to cut benefits, we delayed cost of living increases, and then we raised payroll taxes because we needed to get some money in the door and get it in the door fast. So if you wait until the last minute, those are really the only 2 options available to you. And part of the mistake we made in 1983 is that we did, by raising payroll taxes, draw in more revenue than we were going to need for the next few decades to pay benefits. But we didn't save them in an honest way. We put them in a trust fund that was essentially spent to cover overspending in the rest of the budget, as you said, spent on other general fund items. Didn't save them for this program. So it means that when the trust fund comes due beginning in the year 2017, we've got to cut other government programs or raise other government taxes or borrow to put the money back into the trust fund. If we then had set up individual accounts for young workers, we'd be well on our way to a solution to this problem today, because on top of a safety net, you would then have that extra money set aside in your own name, invested in a fund that you control, the way, as you said, federal workers now have a fund they can invest in. And it would be a pre-funded retirement system on top of a safety net that could work very well. And that's my last point. This is not about current retirees. They have a lot to offer in terms of their experience with the program. They have an awful lot to offer in terms of how to build the safety net. But it's their grandchildren and their children that have the most at stake here, because there's no dispute on Capitol Hill that we're going to take care of anyone that's at or near retirement under the old system, because those are the rules they worked under. But we need a new system with new rules. And I'm convinced that if we didn't have Social Security today and we were to sit down to craft a new program, we would craft one along the lines that you've described, with a safety net that no one can fall below, a safety net that's big enough to keep everyone above the poverty line once they've retired, but this voluntary personal account on top of it, where some of our payroll taxes can go to invest for ourselves, for our own retirement in the future. And that's the only way to give younger workers a better deal. I've got 4 kids, all of whom are at that age now where they're beginning to work outside the home. A couple of them are still in school, a couple are out of school. And I want for them, over their 30, 40 working career, to have the opportunity to invest from the very first job they get. And if we don't do that with the Social Security system, people are going to wait too long, and that's the final point I'll make. Right now, we have too many people approaching 50 years old who aren't setting aside appropriately to provide for their own retirement. And so they're counting on Social Security to do more than it's able to do for them. I saw a statistic recently that said that of people 45 to 54, only 25% had set aside money in an individual retirement account, an IRA. Only 25%. And yet we've got very generous tax incentives to do this, and many, many people aren't doing it. Some of them because they're procrastinating. Others because they just don't have the extra money to do it. But if only 25% are investing, how much are those 25% setting aside? On average, $13,000. That's not nearly enough. But if you start setting aside from the very first job you get, and we can do that within the Social Security system if we reform it along the lines you've proposed, by the time you get to be 45 or 50, those early investments will have compounded again and again and again, and you'll be well on your way to a comfortable retirement nest egg. And so if we're going to do reform, we shouldn't just tinker around the edges the way we have in the past with some benefit cuts and some payroll tax increases. There's going to have to be, some adjustments in those areas, and you've described a couple, the progressive index and other approaches, to keep that underlying system in the black and to keep it solvent. But on top of that, we've got to do better. Otherwise, for each succeeding generation of Americans, it becomes a worse and worse deal where they pay more, but they get less. The only way we can give them the opportunity to do better, to create a nest egg for themselves, is with the kind of reform that includes personal accounts. So that's the drill, and that's what this debate is all about. I think you've won the debate on these 2 key points. Whatever the opinion polls might say about specifics, because the specifics are always difficult. The vast majority of Americans, by 2 and 3 to 1 margins, agree that we do have a pending problem, and they agree that we ought to deal with it sooner than later. And the other thing that's most important is when you talk to the younger Americans, the ones who have the most at stake in this reform, they get the message about personal accounts being the best way to save for their future. And so I think just stay at this effort, and let's see if we can't get some bipartisan support and get this done.
Well, thank you, Tim. Good job. Real good job. Articulate guy, isn't he? Yeah. One thing you don't have to worry about is me staying with this effort. This is a vital issue. The American people expect those of us who are fortunate enough to serve in Washington to solve problems. And I've just begun. I like getting out of Washington to begin with. I like explaining the situation. But we're just beginning. If this were easy, it'd have been done a while ago, and I fully recognize some in Washington, don't particularly want to address this issue. It may be too difficult. And I recognize some of them say, well, this is a partisan thing. We don't want to make one party look good as opposed at the expense of another. But let me tell you what I think is going to happen. I think, and Tim is right, I think more and more people recognize there's a problem. And people are beginning to say, go do something about it. And those who obstruct reform, no matter what party they're in, will pay a political price. In my judgment, people expect us to go to Washington, D.C. to work together. That's what they want to see, particularly when it comes to an issue like Social Security. We've got 3 members of a fine family here. We got grandmother, mom, and down there anchoring at the end is grandson or son. Isn't that right?
That's right.
Yeah. You are Audrey Siglinski.
That's right.
And
I'm a 70-year-old widow.
Don't ever say your age.
Oh, I have no problem. Don't ask me my weight, though.
Okay. Reminds me of my mother.
That's good.
Yeah.
I was a teacher aide for Williamsville South High School for 25 years, and I retired from there. A very enjoyable job. I also wanted to mention I'm a volunteer for Meals on Wheels.
Oh, fantastic.
Which I'm missing today.
I hope somebody filled in
Oh,
behind.
yes. We've got some great people there. It's a good group.
Thanks for doing that.
I like it a lot. My husband and I retired 8 years ago. Unfortunately, he passed on after only 2 years. So the money he had invested in Social Security, in a sense, was gone. Had we had a personal account, I would have had some money for Deb, Jeremy, his brothers, to pass on.
Yeah, let me stop you there if you don't mind.
That's fine. You have my permission.
Yeah. Here's the way the system works. Two folks work. They both contribute to the Social Security system. If one dies early, the spouse, the remaining spouse, gets to choose her benefits or his benefits, which are ever greater, but not both. Now think about that system. Dad went and contributed a lot into the system. He passed away. But the money he put in, most of the money he put in is gone. That's not fair. What kind of system is that? It's not a fair system. It's not fair to the family. It's not fair to the person who's worked all his life in this case. Had he been able to put a money aside in a personal account, that account would have gone to Audrey.
That's right.
Isn't that right? Keep going. You're on a roll.
Okay. I have 5 children, 7 grandchildren, and that's my concern. I think you making the young people aware that there's a problem is going to make them aware and encourage them to save. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we need to see.
Well, I appreciate that. Younger people need to pay attention to this issue. See, if nothing gets done in Congress, as Congressman Penny pointed out, you're going to get to pay higher payroll taxes and higher and higher and higher payroll taxes. And so you need to pay attention to. Actually, I believe younger people are beginning to pay closer attention to this issue. We're beginning to get their attention. First thing is there any doubt in your mind that you're going to get your check?
I'm getting my check, and it's wonderful.
So you're still coming?
It's still coming.
Yeah.
And I'm planning on it for a while yet.
Well, you need to, yeah. Heading toward 80.
That's right.
Right around the corner. You look great.
Thank you very much.
You look like 100 to me. That's where you're going to be.
Okay.
30 more years?
I'll remind you of that.
All right, good. And she wouldn't want her check. On her 99th birthday, she's going to want her check.
That's right.
And you're going to get your check.
That's right.
Okay. And so who'd you bring with you?
I brought my daughter, Deborah, the oldest
Deborah?
of my 5.
Debbie or Deborah?
Debbie. We
Yeah,
like
Deborah.
to call her
You
Debbie.
called her Deborah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, only when she's in trouble.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, her youngest son.
Fantastic. Debbie, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Mom did a good job, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up? Was Mom pretty tough, a disciplinarian?
Yes, she was.
Well, you and I shared the same thing.
Yes, we do.
Tell me what's on your mind.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I was an at-home mom. I was privileged that my husband, who's here today, was willing to let me stay home and, raise the kids, work part-time. But when you do that, you don't get to pay into a retirement system anywhere. So I went, got my master's degree. I have a job I'm very happy with now. But I will never be able to, build a good retirement in the amount of time I have till I retire. So it's very appealing, the plans that you're talking about, because I'll be quite dependent on Social Security.
Yeah.
So that's...
Set aside a little money, watch it grow at a better rate than the current Social Security system.
Exactly. So that, certainly for Jeremy and for my other 3 sons, as you said, that it would make me happy to know that they're taken care of too and that they would have options.
Right. And how's old Jeremy doing?
I'm doing good.
Huh? Tell him where you were born.
Tomball, Texas.
Tomball, Texas. Right outside of Houston.
Yep.
So you got grandmom here, you got mom here.
Got the brother out in the audience.
Got
One
the
of the
brother out there?
three's out in the audience.
Yeah.
Other grandparents. Yeah.
Good. And so what, even, like, first of all, what are you doing with yourself these days?
Well, I'm 18. I'm a sophomore at Canisius College in Buffalo. And
what's your major? Major?
Dual majoring in business marketing and business management.
Great. All A's?
Hopefully.
Well, don't worry about it. That won't disqualify you for being president. All right, Jeremy, get going, will you?
All right, well, being the younger generation, I'm just starting to pay into the system. I like the idea of having these personal accounts, getting a better rate of return in the end, and compound interest and everything, so I build up something for myself that can leave for my future kids and everything. And I like the fact that I'll have something to show for it, because people go and pay decades and decades into Social Security, and when it comes time for me to retire, if we don't change, I'll have nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
So,
you know what's interesting? I say this a lot when I travel around the country, is that a lot of young people think it's more likely they'll see a UFO than a Social Security check. What do you think, Jeremy?
I don't know. I'd rather see the Social Security change.
Yeah, I didn't ask your preference. But there's a lot of young people who, when they listen to the debate and understand the demographic shift that's gone on, don't think they're going to see anything. What kind of system is that, where you got a young guy getting ready to graduate from college paying a payroll tax, a hefty payroll tax, into a system where he doesn't think he's going to see any benefits from it? It's a system that sounds like to me is screaming for reform, so that somebody who contributes into the system not only knows they're taking care of a baby boomer generation or doing their part for the retirement, but also will have something left over for his family in this case. What do you want to do when you get out of college?
Go into real estate.
Real estate, yeah, good. Sounds like to me you understand finances pretty well too. That money can grow over time. Yep. Anybody, any other 18-year-olders that you know worried about this issue, thinking about the issue?
They are now. I got them informed.
Yeah, you do. That's good. Good job. It's important for people Jeremy's age to start listening to this discussion. As Tim said, the longer we wait, the more difficult it's going to be for an up-and-coming generation. This is a generational issue, folks. See, the grandmoms and granddads around America now understand they're going to get their check. And so once that comfort level has been provided, the next logical question from many of the grandmothers I've talked to is, what you going to do about my grandson? You've said there's a problem, Mr. President. I expect you and the United States Congress to make sure that my grandson has got a viable retirement system. That's what a lot of people are beginning to say around America. And that's why I can predict that once we get through on this issue, once I finish traveling the country, and I got a lot more to do, people are going to start demanding from their representatives and their senators a solution. They don't want any Washington double talk. What they want is a solution. So a grandmother can then look at her son, her grandson Jeremy, and say, thankfully, people in Washington did their duty, and I can rest easy knowing I'm going to get my check and Jeremy's going to get his as well. That's the issue. Good job. You did great. You two look alike. These are the Wetzel girls, McKenna and Riley. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. Which one's Riley? That makes you McKenna.
That's true.
They're twins. I'm the father of twins. I am a white-haired father of twins.
You can do that too.
Did you do the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me what you all do.
Well, I'm a history teacher at Bread of Life Christian Academy here in Rochester.
Fabulous. Thanks for teaching.
Yeah, I teach history to the 4th through 7th graders there. And
great.
Hi, guys. I love you and I miss you, and I'll be there tomorrow. Be good. And,
taking advantage of C-SPAN. Good move.
And I am getting married in this summer in August, and my fiance and I are just starting to think about retirement and about our future generations, and hopefully, if God blesses us with kids, our kids, and something we can pass on down to them. And we're really excited about your plan, and that we can set up personal accounts and then watch compound interest grow, and hopefully get a nest egg and be able to hand that down to our kids. So.
Fantastic. I don't remember thinking about compound interest growing when I was 23. Do you? There wasn't a lot of discussion about that type of issue. There's a change. There's a cultural change in America when it comes to investment. And it's because a lot of people are now getting used to the concept of watching their own money grow. Isn't that right? Is a fiance here?
Yeah, he's right over there, Ben.
Ben, look at him. Fine-looking lad.
Thanks, I think so too.
Yeah. August is the wedding?
August 6th, you're invited.
That's a smart move. She knows I won't come, but I will send a gift. McKenna going to be in the wedding?
McKenna is my maid of honor, of course.
Cool. McKenna, what do you do?
I'm a hairdresser at the Scott Miller Salon in Pittsford, New York.
Great. Good.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place to work.
A lot of talk about Social Security?
Not a whole lot there, but honestly, I've been thinking about it.
Have you? Good.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's definitely a problem in the system right now, and things need to change. And I want to say that it's completely commendable of you to stand up and tackle this issue.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my job.
Thank you.
I appreciate you saying that. It's a lot of others in Washington feel the same way I feel. That there's no. They say, "Are you taking a risk?" How can you be taking a risk when you're doing what the people expect? Solving problems. I think the people who take the risk are those who won't come to the table to discuss the issue in a way that will help solve the problem. So do you agree with Riley on personal accounts? Or?
I certainly do. I feel like being able to take more ownership over your future and over your investments is very wise. Yeah.
Don't you like the idea? I mean, some of you have got 401ks, and you open up your statement on a quarterly basis. It seems like to me that would be a healthy thing for our country if more and more people are opening up a statement that says, this is what you're worth, this is how your worth has grown. I mean, to me, it's a notion of getting people to understand that they got to pay attention to the future of the country when you, on a monthly basis, some cases on a daily basis, if you want to get on the internet and look at your asset base. Now you're contributing into both of you, payroll taxes.
Yeah, we both currently are.
Pretty good sized chunk?
No, not really.
No, pretty good sized chunk of your payroll tax.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I think the interesting thing is that when you first talk to people entering into the workplace, their reaction when they first get their checks, what the reaction, what it's like to not have quite as much money as you expected. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, that was a shocker.
Yeah. In other words, government tends to take out a pretty good chunk. And it seems like to me that a significant chunk that is being taken out ought to at least be able to say to young kids, there's a reason why it's worthwhile for the money to go out because it'll help me in my retirement age. That's kind of what we're talking about, isn't it?
Definitely. Yes, it is.
Okay, now that you've got your kids watching, anything else you want to say?
How
about you?
Just
McKenna?
be good today, that's all.
McKenna?
No slips.
Got anything else you need to say?
Well, I just also want to state that I feel like it's just encouraging to know that we could collect money in the end, that we aren't hoping that there will be money there, that it truly will be. And also just the responsibility of knowing that you're setting aside money and that you will be getting it.
See, it's a little lack of trust right now, it sounds like to me. Don't quite trust the government to have a Social Security system available for the money I put in. This is a matter of trust. This is a big issue. I want to thank our panelists for coming to discuss this issue. We'll get to, great job. Very good job. Washington has a duty to earn the trust of the people by making wise decisions about how the people's money will be used. We have a chance, both Republicans and Democrats have a chance to come together and to solve the Social Security issue forever. And when we do, and I believe we will, because the people's voice is going to resonate on this issue, and when we do, all of us who are fortunate enough to serve this country can look back and say, we did our duty for generations to come. Listen, thank you all for coming. May God bless you all. And may God continue to bless our country.
And the President of the United States now wrapping things up at Greece, Athena. Began about 10 minutes of 11, so we've gone about, well, let's see, 30, 40 minutes anyway here to talk to the panelists and meet some of the people on stage, get their opinions on what has been taking place. Now time for some picture taking. People get a chance to reach out, try to shake the hand of the President of the United States in our town for just a few hours today, but with all of the excitement that comes along with it. We'll be sharing, of course, the departure from the Rochester Mountain County Airport as he makes his way from Greece to Athena, again presenting his case for Social Security. Carefully chosen people on stage, obviously, to make the point to support what he is trying to do, but I think a moment for all of us to share here today. Here's the Kodak cameras taking the pictures here. Mark Guerin from Hobart and William Smith, President and former Director of Communications working with the Clinton administration, has been with us this morning and talking a little bit about, and we were interrupted earlier, just the orchestration that goes into putting something like this together. They've done it in other cities, so they have a model, and we saw a lot of familiar references to what has taken place before, but still very carefully put together and a very, very specified purpose.
Carefully put together, well done. Obviously, there's a great deal of care and attention putting into the panelists. The President is noted for being on time. It was a very crisp event, arriving on schedule from the touchdown of Air Force One to the arrival at the high school. And an opportunity for him to stress his themes of the ownership society, of stating the case, putting a little pressure on the members of Congress that were there in the audience. So I think his agenda was a successful one from his point of view.
We jotted down two times. I jotted down 11:23 and 11:33, which I consider to be kind of subtle hints to the three congressmen from this area who are on this entourage and who really have not committed to this point to what's going on.
I suspect on the plane ride up here from Andrews Air Force Base, they had the opportunity to visit with the President in his private cabin. So there was some lobbying going on there as well. And the opportunity to make the case in their own media market, because the question from you and other journalists will be to those members, how are they going to vote? Will they support the President's plan? So it was well executed.
Yeah, there was a point last week where Congresswoman Louise Slaughter was going to be riding up on Air Force One, then saying later there's a lot of work to be done in Washington. Obviously, no question as to where she stands on it.
Sure, and is not surprisingly recognizing the Republican members of Congress. Certainly, when I was in the Clinton White House, we would travel with Democratic members.
All right. We'll get back to you in a minute. We do want to talk about all of the sides and all of the issues here. And Social Security, is no doubt a polarizing issue. In fact, many of the president's Republican allies in Congress have yet to endorse the plan to create that private security options that we talked about. The emphasis in this speech today pretty much pointedly to the three congressmen from this area. Most Democrats say the plan would be a disaster. 13 Wham's Gavin Reynolds explains why so many lawmakers are skeptical and what they propose instead.
The president's visit is energizing local critics of his Social Security plan. Protesters are all over the area talking about why they say the president's proposal to overhaul Social Security is no good.
People don't realize, but New York City has the largest gambling casino in the world. It's called Wall Street. What President Bush wants to do is take your Social Security dollars and gamble them on Wall Street.
The president's plan would allow people to invest as much as 4% of their Social Security taxes in the stock market, which Democrats say is the main flaw.
I don't think the stock market is sound enough that people feel quite confident about putting what is a lifeline for many of them, funding it in that way.
Critics also point to the initial costs of creating private accounts.
Changing over to a private account system will mount huge debt upon the country. I mean, $2 trillion.
The American Association of Retired Persons says that'll lead to reduced benefits for retirees. But what alternatives are there to the challenges Social Security faces in future years? Some Democrats say it should remain intact. How would it be funded? The director of the New York chapter of AARP suggests a change in tax structure.
Raising the cap on the wages. Right now, the cap for Social Security is $90,000 a year. Let's raise it to $140,000 a year.
Whatever happens, many Democrats say as long as the president's plan includes private accounts, they will not approve. Gavin Reynolds, 13 Wham News.
So as you can see, all points of view on the issue of Social Security. We're going to go back to Greece, Athena right now. Jane Flash was there throughout the morning, and now I would suspect sensing some reaction from people and surveying the crowd a little bit, Jane.
Yeah, we did talk to a couple of people as they're exiting here, and the first thing that we heard from them is they didn't expect the president to be so personable and so funny. He was very folksy, as you heard, sitting out up on the stage, looking very relaxed, working off of notes, but not really with a script. He joked several times. One of the first things he did was turn on Congressman Tom Reynolds' microphone when it was clear it wasn't on, so he's clearly gotten used to doing these things. He's been in 26 cities so far. He talked about Generation Xers as youngsters. That was another one of his folksy mannerisms here today. He told one of the panelists that she reminded him of his mother, Barbara Bush. He told another panelist, that woman's grandson, that don't worry about your grades. You don't need A's to be the president. And that generated a lot of laughter. But really the first part of his speech, as you heard here, was talking about why the system is no longer solvent. People did seem to be really listening into that. And in fact, he got a lot more in depth than many folks here expected that he would. He also talked about his controversial plan to create personal retirement accounts with part of your Social Security money. You heard all of the panelists that he spoke with personally on stage supported that. That may in fact be because they were handpicked, and that's what they told the Republicans they would say once they got up there. But he did seem to be very folksy with them and really ask a lot of questions of them and very intent. And what we're hearing from people here is that they did not expect that, and they were pleased with that engagement.
I'm a little bit curious, Jane, because I've been to some of these events before. Are the people being allowed to leave yet, or do they have to wait in the auditorium until he has begun the motorcade back to the airport?
Well, a lot of people are getting up to leave, but they're not allowed to go out. The doors are all closed at this moment. Until the motorcade leaves, no one will be allowed to leave this venue, and that is standard protocol.
All right, Jane, we'll let you talk to some people there, and maybe come back to you in a few minutes, see if we can hear from some of the people that were in the audience. We want to regroup a little bit and show you where everyone has been and continues to be this morning. Doug Embledge has been out at the Greater Rochester Monroe County Airport throughout this day. Jenny Ryan outside Greece, Athena, close to some of the protesters who have been watching things come and go there throughout the day as well. So there's Doug, umbrella in hand. I haven't had a chance to look outside, but obviously not a good day weather-wise for the president here.
It took a turn for the worse, Don, while the president was off in Greece. It wasn't too bad when he landed, cold and gray, but it wasn't wet. Now it's wet and windy to throw onto the cold and gray. There's been a lot of activity, and I'll sum it up for you in a few minutes here, but a lot of activity around Air Force One while the president was gone. Kristen Miranda was out covering that, and in a few minutes we'll talk to you about that.
All right, Ginny, you've been outside Greece, Athena. Any signs of activity yet? And I'm more curious about the protesters. They seem to miss the mark on the way in. Do they regroup at all and to try to catch the motorcade as it leaves?
They have not regrouped, Don. There are two entrances and exits at Greece Athena, one down here over my shoulder on my right and one on my left. He entered on my left. Folks are hoping he will exit on my right. This is the corner they are at. I'm having indications, though, that he may exit in the same area that he entered in. We'll have to see. We're waiting for the first lead cars to start the entourage back to the airport. We have not so far seen any indications that the lead cars are exiting Greece Athena yet, but the protesters are here. They have been here, whether the president passes by or not, Don. They are getting their message heard, at least by the media, who are standing very close by. We've got video of Don,
Live,
two or three people. Pardon me?
This is tape earlier. We're looking at some tape earlier when the protesters were apprehended. Maybe tell us a little bit about that. And that's so far the only arrest that we know of?
The only arrest that we know of, and what's stumping all of us here, is how they managed to even cross the street. There's a fence put up on the west side of the street across from Athena, and that's where we all are. That's where the protesters are. Somehow, these three people managed to cross the street and actually get probably 4 feet beyond the barriers that are set up inside the perimeter of Greece Athena High School. We don't know how they did it. They were arrested. They had to do so forcibly because these folks would not get off the ground. Police and motorcycles came up, assisted the mounted patrol officers, arresting these folks, put handcuffs in them, and put them in the patrol cars. We assume they're at Greece Police Headquarters right now, Don.
All right, well, we'll be following that throughout the day as well. And Doug, of course, waiting out at the airport. We will keep you posted. We're going to stay on, of course, until everything departs and things are out of the way. Any other signs of activity, Doug, at the airport in terms of people gathering for the departure?
It's really been interesting, Don. You know, there were kind of two subsets of people with access today. Those who got to travel with the president and those who got to greet him when he arrived here, some of the local dignitaries and politicians. And then the other interesting thing was that while the president was in Greece, there were several groups of people who came along and got to either have their picture taken in front of Air Force One or, in a few rare circumstances, actually get on board Air Force One. I'm going to bring Kristen Miranda in real quickly here. You talked to some folks who actually got on board that airplane. I didn't think that was going to be possible for security reasons.
Even Secret Service said that they didn't know that it would be possible, but I talked to Bob Nagel from Honeoye Falls, and he said that he made arrangements about a week ago, has a relative who is a flight engineer on Air Force One, and that relative made arrangements for him and some of his friends to get on board and take a nice long tour. They were on board for about an hour on Air Force One today. They said they got to see where the president works, where the president sleeps, where the food is prepared on Air Force One. He said it was so clean you can't even wear your shoes inside. They make you take your shoes off when you tour Air Force One.
We'll hear from some of those folks later today in our coverage at 5 and 6. Don, I want you to know I took note that it was 11:42 when the president was still shaking hands in the auditorium at Greece Athena. I was just curious, when you have a motorcade, how quickly you can get to the airport.
We'll put a stopwatch on it a little bit. I'm going to ask the cameraman to just pan back for a second to the plane. Mark Guerin is one of those who have had the luxury of being in this plane or in other presidential planes. And Mark, tell us a little bit about what the interior is like. What is it like to be on Air Force?
Well, as you can see on your screen, it's a remarkable plane. It was designed during President Reagan's administration, but delivered in 1990. President Bush was the first president to fly aboard it. It can hold 70 passengers or so. There's a private executive suite for the president, including a bedroom, a shower, workout room, and office for his senior staff, members of the media, and Secret Service. So it has a fully equipped pharmacy, always a doctor on board, and it's equipped with all the kind of communications advices that
it really be the Oval Office in the sky. If it
Absolutely. And of course, I think many Americans remember September 11th, the president's trip from Sarasota, Florida, to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana after he had found out it was literally the rolling White House, as it were.
And you were telling me earlier, not likely anyone would ever get hungry on there.
Not at all. It's well equipped. They can serve. There's 3 floors on that flight: the cargo floor, then the main floor, and but it is important for U.S. President. There are 2 of them that fly, and whenever the president's on board any aircraft, it's called Air Force One.
Can we talk about some of the interior? We talked about it earlier, and I'm not sure what we can talk about security-wise, but you were saying when the plane comes in, why it angles, the way it angles, and who's where. Right, as you can see on the screen, what's different from any other plane of that size is the corridor is on the left-hand side of the plane. So always when a plane, Air Force One, arrives, it will come in on the left-hand side because the president's cabin is on the right-hand side of the plane, his office, his bedroom, and to avoid any kind of security lapses. The press exits the rear door of the Air Force One, but it's a great history. President Johnson was sworn in, of course, on Air Force One in Dallas and Love Field after President Kennedy's assassination. President Bush allowed Air Force One, this plane, to be used to carry Mrs. Nancy Reagan back to California. So there are special exceptions that have been made for families historically. But generally, these are the 2 planes that carry the U.S. presidents. Now, the First Lady traveling to the Mideast coming back today, but would not use one of
Not this
these aircraft,
particular plane, right? The First Lady or the Vice President have different aircraft.
Okay. Mark, we'll talk more about that, and of course, wait for that plane to take off in probably about a half hour or so from now. We're going to flash back a little bit because there is so much preparation, as you can imagine, goes into an event of this magnitude. And lots of people of our community have made it happen. Patrice Walsh has shared some of those moments and joins us now to tell us a little bit about that and tell us where you are and what you're up to.
Well, I've been at Greece Athena, Don, listening to the president speak along with many lucky people who had tickets for the event. We want to bring in a couple of the students because, as you know, the president's message was supposed to appeal to young folks to get them to think about Social Security at an age when many are not. These are 2 high school students from Greece Olympia who were actually covering this for their school paper. First of all, did you understand the president's message?
Yes, I did very clearly.
And is Social Security something you're going to start thinking about, personal investment?
Yeah, because we're the younger generation that the problem's going to conflict with, so we have to prepare ourselves for that.
What do you think? I know you didn't get real close to the president. Still an honor?
Yeah, definitely. It was very motivational and it was inspirational, and I think it was a good speech.
And Don, quite an honor, of course, for anybody who was able to be here today, whether or not you agree with what the president has to say. People in this room, everybody very happy with what they heard. A very lighter side of the president that we saw today, and we will share more student reaction and from others coming up tonight.
Yeah, I think Jane was telling us a little bit earlier, people almost surprised at the style, I think, of the whole event today.
I'm sorry, Don. I'm getting a lot of feedback here.
We were just talking about the whole style of the event. Jane was saying earlier that there seemed to be a lot of, some people surprised at the overall relaxed style of what took place on stage.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of people dressed in red, white, and blue. If you're talking about style like that, I apologize. It's very loud in here. People they seem very excited to have been able to be a part of this today, Don, and especially the young folks. There's a little kindergarten student that we're going to introduce you to later on who was very excited to catch the shuttle bus this morning and be here today to see the president. And we will hear from him and many others about what they experienced today.
All right, Patrice Walsh at Greece Athena at this hour. Waiting now, the crowd's waiting really for the president's motorcade to leave, and we'll talk to Jenny and others as that motorcade prepares to leave Greece Athena in just a few minutes. Also get on its way to the airport. Doug Gembledge and Kristen Miranda standing by there. Just want to pass along word here from Associated Press within the last few minutes, word that the most wanted terror suspect in Iraq may have been injured. Al-Qaeda in Iraq saying its leader Abu Musab al-Zakari is injured, and the statement on the website urging Muslims to pray for his recovery. How he was injured, if he's been perhaps taken into custody, we're not sure, but we will let you know and keep you posted on that as well. We're going to move along, and I'm sorry I didn't hear where we're moving on to next. Doug is standing by at the airport, and we're going to talk to you right now.
Yeah, Don, as we mentioned earlier, it's been an interesting couple of hours while the president was not here to see what kind of goes on around this airplane. There are some folks that you can just kind of sense the activity is starting to move again, so they know here, the Secret Service does, the security does, that the president is about to return and hop on this plane and fly back to Washington. Earlier, there were some folks here who did have access either to Air Force One, or perhaps they got to greet the president. There were some children here two of whom have a dad who works at the airport. So they were able to get down here along this fence line right in front of Press Row and actually see the president get off the plane. And one of them was a young man I spoke to. His name is Josh Santiago. What was it like to see the president step off that plane?
It was pretty amazing because it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to just, he's probably never going to come to Rochester ever again, so it was pretty amazing, yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, what do you think of this airplane?
It's huge. Because the airplanes I ride to Florida, they're not even nearly this size.
Yeah, his is nicer inside, too.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Josh Santiago was missing school, but his mother informed him he had to go back to school as soon as all of this was over. Real quickly, some information about the flight situation for folks who don't get to fly on Air Force One today.
Yeah, we'll see a lot of things start happening here now. We'll see Secret Service come back out. There will be snipers on the roofs as there were when the plane came in. But as for people who are flying commercial flights, the flight service will stop as soon as the president's motorcade comes back into the fenced area of the airport. That's when it stops, and it will be stopped until this airplane is long gone out of Rochester. So it's expected to be about 20 to 30 minutes. I talked to Terry Slaybaugh, the director of the airport, just a little while ago. He said when the president came in, there were no diverted flights. Everybody got out on time. No problems whatsoever at the airport. He said the Secret Service has been really great, and the Air Force One folks, with making sure that commercial service was not interrupted. It wasn't when the president came in. They expect it not to be when the president leaves.
The delays, if there were any then, were not any worse than what they've been telling us for the last 2 days, Don.
All right, and interesting, didn't seem to be a problem coming in. We were all waiting to see how that 747 maneuvers the runway and takes off, so it's going to be an interesting sight to see.
It came in from the south, and we'll see how it takes off.
Yeah. All right, we'll get back to you as the motorcade approaches. That reminds us to check in with Ginny Ryan, who is out at Athena, keeping an eye on the grounds out there, not only the protesters, but also the motorcade, to see if there's any sign or indication it's getting ready to move.
And I'm looking with you, Don. I see no signs right now, but police are poised and ready. Again, I'm getting the indication over my left shoulder, the same entrance that they came into, that they will be exiting, heading down Long Pond Road to Vintage and picking up 390 back to the airport. It's only a guess. It's the route they took, and it seems to be the secured route at this point. Same amount of protesters, really, that started the greeting the president here about 9:30 or 10 o'clock. The same group here. They broke very briefly, but they're back out here now again. You're looking earlier at the arrest of about 2 or 3 protesters who somehow broke through across the street and the barrier very briefly until they were stopped by police, and they forcibly had to be picked up and put into a patrol car with handcuffs on. 2 or 3 protesters, actually one of whom that Evan Dawson spoke to earlier. I believe we have some sound with him, a protester who was arrested.
Happy for the protesters. I think it took a lot of courage, and I think more people should do it.
More people should try to get beyond the barrier?
Well, you know, I think people should stand up to Bush, you know.
This is America. If you don't like it, see ya. Bye-bye. There's the door. Go somewhere else.
The young gentleman we first spoke to was not one of the people that was arrested, but he was reacting to the arrest of 3 of the protesters, supporting their arrest. Evan Dawson got a chance to talk to people on both sides of the issue, and we should point out there are people on both sides of the issue, as much as they don't want to admit that they are well represented on both sides.
Yeah, very well represented. In fact, you kind of see gatherings down on our side. A lot of the protesters, war protesters, gathered here, and a lot of the folks supporting the president and his plan down on the other side, and it's about as quiet as it's been in a long time as they wait for the motorcade to come out. One thing you hear from some folks today is that they say they really would have liked a chance to go inside. Some folks supporting the president, but said they felt it was a little exclusive. They felt it was a little too hand-picked. But, you know, obviously the White House has their methods, and this is the way the Bush administration has done things since President Bush took office 5 years ago.
You can handpick the audience inside. You cannot pick the audience that's outside, and that was pretty clear today.
We talked to one of the gentlemen, as you saw in the video, who was arrested. We talked to him before he was arrested. He was the first protester, so to speak, here, and he said it is important to be able to demonstrate peaceably and without incident. So it's curious to be, we're going to try to talk to him later, curious to see what led to the incident and his take on things. Yeah.
We're really stupefied to the fact that they got across the street. Yeah. Exactly, because security is very, very tight. We'll do another look across our shoulder, Don. Again, we are still waiting for the motorcade to exit. It's been about, what, 12 minutes, 15 minutes since the president ended his speech. Is that to your estimation as well?
I would think so, yeah. It was about 11:50, I think, so it's been about 15 minutes. I'm curious on the protesters arrested were all anti-Bush, or was that first one supportive and happened to be arrested? Because I was a little confused at the one interview.
To the best of our knowledge, they were all anti-Bush, anti-war protesters, only 3 of them. They were part of a larger group here today. We hope to learn more about what their mission, what their message was.
All right, and certainly a little quieter right now for you, for the moment. Anyway.
Wait 1 minute, Don. Oh, we heard some noise and saw some movement. I thought perhaps that the motorcade was about to exit, but I do know that the helicopter is again overhead, and that was the first sign we had earlier that the president was about to enter Greece, Athena. So this again may be the indication that he's about to exit. It is right overhead, and we will keep our eye on it. The mounted patrols are starting to move.
All right.
South as well.
We're going to just take a short break, and if there's any movement out of Greece, we will be right back there. So you will not miss a moment of our presidential coverage of the visit of George W. Bush. We're back. We're going to go out to Ginny in just a moment, but we thought David Aldridge, our meteorologist here, would bring us up to date on what the weather is over Greece, and you see some rain's moving in there now.
A little bit of light rain, Don. It's not a big deal, but let's take a look at actually, it's our lake effect radar. You can see I've drawn an arrow between Greece and the airport. Light rain at best, but again, it's going to be damp, a little moist, and the breeze is picked up out of the northeast about 20 miles an hour. We're not expecting temperatures to climb much out of the low to mid-50s today, but right now it's pretty close to 50, so it feels kind of blustery.
So turning on the windshield wipers in that presidential limo.
Indeed.
All right. You may have all your fancy radar. I don't need that to know it's raining. All we have to do is go to Ginny Ryan and take a look at her hair. And
oh, you're so kind.
And I know
Mr.
it's been raining out there today, and I know that before you come back to work today, you're going to stop somewhere and regroup. That's for sure.
You don't want to sit next to me looking like this. I can't think of people who have a colder job right now than the folks that are on the roof of Greece Athena, the Performing Arts Center. Don, we're assuming they're sharpshooters prepared for the president's exit at the school right now. I don't know if you can make them out. I think you can. They're silhouettes standing there, ready to go, providing security from up above. Also up above right now, circling a state police helicopter awaiting the president's exit. Don, we have the first indications that the motorcade is ready to leave. We see the flashing lights approaching the entrance to the school, and you are watching the presidential motorcade, the very first lead cars exiting. We'll listen in. Lead car, Monroe County Sheriff's Department, followed by the town of Greece, and now the presidential limousines exiting.
And of course, as we said before, one of those a decoy, the president in one and not in the other. And as you can see, it is some rainfall out there on the lens of our mass cam from the top of our remote trucks out there.
Yeah, indeed, it is rain going sideways. They are exiting the same way they come out, turning left onto Long Pond Road, heading toward Vantage Lane. They will assumably get onto 390 at Vantage Road and return the same way they came, up 390. The state police helicopter overhead, circling several cars, many vans still following the president. And again, the same ambulance we saw starting with him at the airport this morning, Don. And you know what? I think it was about, 7 minutes, 6 minutes, a photographer who happened to be on Route 390 watching the motorcade pulled over to shoot it passing, and he said to me, Ginny, they were going probably 80 to 90 miles an hour. It was very quick, and we have some pictures of that. As a matter of fact, people were actually, Don, standing along Route 390, cheering and waving flags for that moment or two that the president passed. There were actually some students from Greece Olympia, which is off Route 390, standing there trying to catch some glimpse of this moment in history. The one phrase we kept hearing over and over again today, the chance of a lifetime to see it all happen.
All right, well, Doug asked us to keep track, so we've jotted down 12:09 is when everything left Greece Athena, and we will see exactly when it gets out to the airport. So, Jenny, thank you again, and we will perhaps touch base, but I think most everything's kind of wrapped up. I know we're going to be going back inside and talking to some people as well, but thank you if we don't talk to you again for all of your help this morning as well. We have talked a little bit about presidential visits, and there have been presidential visits here in the past, some dating back quite a ways. Not quite president yet, but Abe Lincoln stopped in Rochester on the way to his inauguration. A plaque marks the spot downtown. He was nominated, by the way, on this day, May 18th, in 1860. In more recent times, President Ronald Reagan would stop at the War Memorial in November of 1984. His Vice President, George H. Bush, was here for a fundraiser in 1986 and campaigned here for president in 1988. He would return as president on this day, May 18th, in 1989, visiting the Wilson Magnet School and speaking at Kodak's Elm Grove plant. 10 years later, his son, George W., would bring his presidential campaign to the area, and again for an airport rally in 2000. He would not come this way again, but would stop nearby in April of last year, campaigning in Buffalo to promote the Patriots Act. Now it's Social Security and Greece Athena, the likely stage on which to present his case. And, of course, that story we filed last week, it not only was the likely stage, it was the stage, and a lot of references to May 18th when that package was put together, and a lot of coincidences when we talked about that. Mark Guerin is back with us again, and we're talking a little bit. I want to talk about the motorcade, but I want, in looking at that report about the Patriots Act, pretty much a similar setup. Whenever he has wanted to campaign for an issue, this kind of informal town meeting setting seems to be something he chooses. Does it seem to be an effective one, do you think?
That's right. I think it's sort of a format that the president is comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
He's used it on other issues. It's part of, I think, the permanent campaign of a modern presidency. Yeah. Certainly that it never ends with the re-election. They're advancing an idea, a legislative agenda, or in this case, Social Security reform.
Yeah. And I think it seems people compelled to move away from the traditional stand behind the podium and deliver a speech, but get people involved. People like Audrey this morning that
there's a human interaction.
Yeah.
Human interaction that you don't get with a soundbite. And I think for the audience and for the extended coverage for an area like this, his jokes with Audrey and others, the natural rapport that presidents can have, it shows them in a broader context.
Right. We want to take a look out at the airport. They're getting ready, of course, to await the arrival of the presidential motorcade, and we said it left at 12:09, so that's almost 4 minutes ago, so we'll see how rapidly they get there. But Mark, tell us a little bit about the motorcade from your experiences with the Clinton White House and how you put that together and how you build it and get it to where it has to go.
Sure. Well, nothing is left to chance. Every vehicle has a manifest of who should be in it, when. What you'll see in the motorcade is the lead advance person, usually in the decoy limousine, the president's doctor, military officer, carrying the football with all the kind of secure codes. There'll be a backup for any senior staff that are traveling with the president. We saw Karl Rove and others, the press secretary, assistant press secretary. And there's always a press pool traveling with the president. Any movement of the president will have, and these will be some of the vans that you'll see following the limousine and other service vehicles for the press pool.
What about the thing I was thinking the other day? Obviously, they have to alert, I would assume, Strong Hospital here.
Certainly.
Would they say, all right, here's the president's blood type, and have this standing by? What preparation, how far do they go with that?
Significant. Certainly Air Force One has a complete pharmacy on board, an operating table for any kind of emergency procedures, and the doctor is always at the president's side.
That's amazing. It's got to be fascinating to be inside.
It is. And the thing that strikes one, I think, is that nothing is left for chance. Every seat, has a manifest of every list of who should be in what vehicle when.
I'm gonna go to Doug Emmons right now, because if we keep talking, he's gonna go on that plane. We're gonna whet his appetite. I can see you out there going, I gotta get in that plane. I want to see the surgical room. I want to see this. I want to see that.
Kristen Miranda said the same thing to me a few minutes ago. She said she would love to be able to go inside that airplane. As we mentioned, she did talk to a few of the folks who did get a tour. I'm struck by this, listening to the two of you talk about all the detail we've gone into about this 1 2-hour presidential visit. Now, obviously, we're all very interested in it because it is happening in our town today. But think about how often this happens. This goes on day in and day out for the President of the United States, from Bush to Clinton to Bush again, and well before the first President Bush, this kind of operation is carried out. The snipers on the roof, all the security checkpoints ahead of time, flying in the limos and the motorcade ahead of time. The one thing they didn't think about, or actually I'm sure they did, but they just told us about it, is that when the president's plane behind me turns 180 degrees to leave here, we all have to be escorted into the hangar that's behind our photographers here, because the jet wash would blow all of us into the building. So these are the little details that we didn't anticipate, but we'll be able to keep a camera out here and keep the coverage going. But it's just one of the things they just told us about, Don. We're anticipating the president's return, and the first clue would be the helicopter in the air right over to my right now. That's the police helicopter that led the way out to Greece Athena and is now back with us here at the airport. So we are anticipating, you probably know, Don, has the motorcade left Greece Athena? I assume it has.
12:09. I jotted down the time just
12:09, thank you. All right, so now it's, yeah, we wanted to, just for Ed Britton's traffic reports later on, have that be the benchmark for a commute from Athena to the airport if you have to catch a flight. It's now 12:15.
I'm curious, too, because you mentioned you have to move out of the way when that plane pivots 180 degrees. Part of it may be the jet wash, but Mark Aaron was telling us earlier that the corridor on that plane is on the left-hand side. The president's office and all of the important people are on the right-hand side of the plane. I wonder if that's part of a security measure, too, to make sure when that plane pivots, no one has access to that side of the aircraft.
I wasn't arguing with the jet wash theory. If it meant I was going to be blown off this podium, I figured we'd just go with it as it is. But, yeah, that's possible, too. There's all kinds of things here, and it is the Secret Service. And most of what they do is secret. They don't share it all with us. They give us little nuggets to chew on and talk about for a few hours. But, again, most of it is secret. Kristen Miranda talked to the folks from the Secret Service just a little while ago, Don, and the special agent in charge is from Western New York. For those agents, this is a big deal because they don't get to do this every day. It's only the presidential detail that actually goes through all this day in and day out.
It's true, but they said that they do. The one gentleman that I talked to said he used to travel all the time with the president, and so he's seen this quite a few times. And it does become pretty routine, but every city presents its own challenges or its own special things that they do have to look out for.
And I'm guessing one of the dangers in their work is not letting it become routine, because they have to be prepared for the worst case scenario every second that the president is out of the White House.
The lucky situation here is that they've been through Rochester many times before. They're very familiar with this airport, how it's run, and the streets and the towns here. So they really had a sort of a leg up when they began this detail, because they were so familiar with everything they were going to encounter here.
All right, well, we're anticipating the motorcade any minute now, Don. One interesting note, and I don't know if he's still a member of the Secret Service, but a lot of folks from Rochester will remember the name Corny Southall. He's a Rush Henrietta graduate, I think about class of 81 or 82, maybe a little later than that. Played football at Notre Dame, was actually signed on by the Bills for a little while. He went on to become a member of the Secret Service detail for the White House during the Clinton years. I don't know where he is now, but there's a little local connection to the Secret Service. I'm sure there are others, but that's a name folks might know.
It is kind of interesting to put all of that together and see. I want to talk to Mark just for a second, too, about Secret Service and how, with this many cities, how that detail is there one detail that is always with George W. Bush and then extra people added, or depending on the city, different limos? I mean, they must have more than
they do.
We see.
Yeah, there's a detail assigned to the president and a lead agent that the president would feel particularly comfortable with, and they would leapfrog from city to city. Advance teams going out in advance. Of course, the president and his immediate family, the vice president and family, all former presidents and their spouses are protected by the United States Secret Service, and any minor child up to the age of 16. So their range, and then of course during campaign cycles, protecting candidates. They're extremely professional, highly trained, and provide a great deal of protection. Going back since when President McKinley was assassinated in 1901, Congress said that we should have the Secret Service protect presidents, and that has been their charge ever since.
And Doug was pointing out earlier, whenever there's a local connection, which there has been with a couple of people, bring them in. They certainly know the area and can offer some expert advice on
That's right, and that kind of background in law enforcement is enormously helpful to the president and his family.
All right. Well, it's been about 10 and a half minutes since the motorcade left Greece Athena, and Doug and Kristen are waiting for that out at the airport. As we said, Air Force One has been here since touching down about 10:15 this morning, and we're waiting the departure now as we get out to the airport. Again, passing along the advice that some of the airport traffic will be interrupted, I would suspect probably right now as the motorcade approaches the airport, and until Air Force One leaves our city and as well out of the airspace before everything resumes at the airport here. Ginny Ryan is standing by again over at Greece Athena and quieting down there now a little bit.
There are shuttle buses now arriving at the school, but most people, most of the dignitaries and the people who were invited to hear the president speak have chosen to walk back to the shuttle lot. You can see the stream of people, all in their best clothes, walking down Long Pond Road back to the shuttle bus. And I got to talk to several of them, and they talked about the energy in the room. One person said to me, I wasn't a big Bush supporter coming into this event, but I was completely impressed with how he handled the crowd, the charm and the warmth he exuded, and the feeling I had, I left. There was a lot of energy in the room, and even if you weren't a Bush supporter, you came away impressed with how he handled the crowd and the local issues.
I was going to say, I don't know if we can find out in real detail, but I'm very curious, particularly, Audrey, I keep going back to Audrey, but the people that were selected, very personable, and obviously I would think they had to select some people and narrow it down through some process before they would put those people on stage.
If you want to take it.
They sure did have a process, and they've done this in other cities, so they certainly have a drill down, a pattern of people that they need to have in the audience, that they want to have in the audience. But the president is able to connect with those people, Don, and I think that's what the people in the audience felt, that connection, that warmth, and that charm. And you can't plan the reactions and the personalities at every stop. So he interplayed well with the people, and the audience felt it. As one person said to me, there was a real energy that I picked up.
Well, everything right on time. Doug, your motorcade is arriving there.
What was our drive time, Don, from Greece Athena High School to the airport?
To 12:21, so we've got 11 minutes that it took to get that breaks the record set by Ginny Ryan back in 2002.
Yeah, but
so.
that was unaided by motorcade. I mean, there's really two different categories, kind of like a wind-aided sprint. All right, well, there's the presidential limousine, is really the second of the two that just pulled in, led by Monroe County Sheriff's Department and the Greece Police, and there's the president saying goodbye to Rochester. Let's watch.
Mark, you're saying, too, that Karl Rove on this journey. You were surprised by that?
And they're
seeing the members of Congress advancing behind the president, going back to Washington. They'll likely land at Andrews Air Force Base and then take Marine One, the helicopter, over to the White House.
There it is, President George W. Bush, 43rd President of the United States, saying goodbye to Rochester and leading us to wonder exactly how long it will be before we see another sitting president come to the Flower City. Kind of interesting. We're always used to going up that ramp and going into a plane, but he actually went in and shut the doors. There's a little hallway there. That's the part that leads him to his side of the plane?
That's right. That would be into his office. There's a desk and an office space, and then a bedroom, and is the executive suite.
From his normal staff at the White House, obviously Karl Rove, we said, was added to this. Who would normally accompany him on this journey? And for him, I guess, it's interesting. You wake up, you go to work, you get on the plane, and by the end of this day, it'll be a routine day for him, and look what it has been for us.
Certainly the campaigns prepare presidents for that in advance of being elected to office, going from city to city. He would travel with his press secretary, his speechwriter. I would suspect folks from legislative affairs working with those members of Congress, because they will be sitting on the plane there and attending to their issues.
And, of course, with Congressman Reynolds on board coming up, likely that they made some last-minute changes and adjustments, I would assume, going over the format for the morning and seeing who's going to be there and letting him know what these folks are like.
That's right. The congressman, having chaired the Republican campaign committee, has worked very closely with the White House on these issues. Certainly for Rochester, it's been a great and historic day. Whether or not the president's agenda will be advanced by this, only time will tell.
I want to touch base with Doug, because I'm not sure, Doug, are you going to be able to stay in place when that plane pivots, or?
Yeah, we're being told, Don, fairly urgently that we have to get off this podium we're on. We'll be able to return to talk to you in just a few minutes, but the plane is, there's the jetway backing away, and we're going to switch to our above the ground mast cam, we call it at the station, so you can watch Air Force One turn around. But again, we have to get out of the way because the jet wash would wash us away if we didn't.
Terry Slaybaugh and others, I think it was Sam Cooper, and when I look back at the history of this airport, certainly blessed with leadership such as Terry Slaybaugh now, and Sam Cooper, who was the airport manager for so many years and witnessed, I think, 4 sitting presidents, Sam was saying, come in like this. But they expressed some concern that when this 747 takes off, the runway lights may be blown over, probably from that jet wash that you're talking about, because we just don't have that kind of an aircraft here very often. We're looking now at Air Force One as it prepares to leave. Unlike flights that most of us are on, that we have to wait, I think, for clearance or check what other planes are doing, there's nothing in the way for Air Force One. No planes coming in, no planes to taxi behind. Whenever they want to leave, they will be able to fire that 747 up and depart. As Doug was pointing out earlier, it will pivot, and as we were talking to Mark earlier, that right-hand side of the plane seems to be the area where the president and most of the activity take place there. What's going on now, Mark, inside there as people get ready?
I suspect they could be watching you right now.
They watch the local
There's
news?
19 televisions on that plane. There's 85 phones, reviewing speeches, preparing for the next leg of the journey. There's I suspect they're preparing to serve lunch to the visiting members of Congress and the press and Secret Service that are on board.
That's interesting. Is there an effort by the White House to say, all right, he's coming to Rochester, and we want to tape record every local station and look through those tapes and see how it was handled, and can we learn from it, or how did they treat us, or what was their reaction? Did they go to that extent?
Certainly, I think any good communications office would want to understand how the local press is covering it. This event will query whether this will be on network news tonight, so the importance of this is regional in central and western New York generally. The impact of this will be in this media market. So what you're covering here, what the Rochester paper will cover, and other radio and TV stations will be enormously important for the White House in getting their message out.
A very big event for us, but as you point out, in terms of the country and the world, something that may be 20 seconds or 25 seconds. I suspect maybe on some of the newscasts, we probably will use that little clip with Audrey tonight at some of the lighter moments. But as we look around, some of the familiar faces that we see with the White House press corps on the air every night don't really make a journey such as this. They're represented, the national media there, but we don't see the...
I would suspect the White House press corps would travel, certainly the pool, and there's some of the network correspondents would be covering it. But not every event that the president will do each and every day will make the network news. And despite the bully pulpit and the megaphone of the White House, it's not always national news.
We've seen, as we said, 27 cities, I think, or 26 up till now, and this will be the 27th where the president has brought this message. And obviously varies from president to president, but given the preparation that has to be made, how often is it realistic for the president to do something like this on any given topic or any given visit?
Well, clearly it's setting that agenda that is an important part. And the president staking out this issue, it's very time-consuming and politically, as he himself said here today, questionable whether it will have the kind of results desired. But mixing this with international travel, foreign travel, and the other pressing duties of the White House, it's a challenge for any White House scheduler.
Air Force One now pivoting 180 degrees, as Doug pointed out. And now we're looking at the side of the plane where the president is perhaps having lunch, perhaps looking at this broadcast, perhaps talking to some of the people and saying, I suspect, hey, how do you think it went? How did we do here? Did we get our message across? Did people seem to react to it? And of course, as we pointed out, we've had Jane Flash, Patrice Walsh out at Greece Athena today, along with Ginny on the outside. So on our newscast coming up later today at 5, 6, and 11, we'll be able to bring you a lot more than we've been able to share live. We'll be able to bring you the reaction of people who were in that auditorium today, who had a chance to listen to the President of the United States make his case for Social Security, to sit with friends and neighbors in an informal setting and just be in the same room with the President of the United States and 1,600 other good friends. So those are some of the stories that await us. A lot of stories to be told. The protest stories. Evan Dawson was out there today as protesters were arrested, spoke to one of those who was arrested before he was arrested. And we were going to try to follow that up as well and see what that was all about, why they were arrested, how they were able to gain access a little bit closer to Greece Athena than many thought would be possible. Some of the young people that were at Greece Athena today, the students. A pretty much normal day from what we're told, and that's why the president came in and out, I think, of that side entrance into the auditorium. The rest of the school, although I suspect watching this on television today, probably a fairly normal day. They'll be able to go home and say, Mom, the President of the United States was at my school today. Did you see him? Yeah, on television. Didn't get a chance beyond that. But it's still an exciting time. But as Mark pointed out, in the event of, in the scheme of the whole world, something that is going to be a short story of continuing coverage. And as we pointed out earlier, and we're still waiting for final word, but we did receive word earlier, reported from AP, that the most wanted terror suspect in Iraq, Abu Musab al-Zakari, has been injured. Whether or not he is in any form of custody, we do not know, and we will be updating that story as well. And of course, events on Capitol Hill. I suspect the president probably at this point will be monitoring the situation on his the end of the filibuster and the vote, which may have come by now, or maybe coming as Congress gets back to work on that.
Certainly, he made reference to that at the beginning of his remarks at the auditorium. But these are campaign events.
Mm-hmm.
He's really building a constituency for his agenda, working the legislative strategy for those 3 members of Congress that joined him on this trip,
Mm-hmm.
and to try to get the temperature raised so they will demand from those members of Congress their viewpoint. So what you're seeing here is all presidents have done. I participated in President Clinton's battle for health care, is taking the message out of Washington. The president made many references to that, to take it to the people, to try to advance his cause. How successful he will be is a part of the legislative story yet to be told.
If you're a member of Congress, how soon? The state Democratic Party chairman has been calling on Tom Reynolds in particular to make up your mind and speak out on this. So we've got Tom Reynolds, Randy Kuhl, and Jim Walsh, who are on board Air Force One. I presume perhaps flying back because Congress has work to do this afternoon. And as much of an effort to persuade the public, to put them on the spot a little bit more. If you're a member of Congress, how much time do they have before they really have to speak one way or another on this?
I suspect after an event like this, it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
And that was certainly the intent, as well as Congressman Boehlert, who joined him, as you saw in the auditorium. So this was had facets to this trip, certainly. I suspect thank Congressman Reynolds for his leadership with the Congressional Campaign Committee to put a little pressure on wavering members of Congress and to take the message outside of Washington, because this will become a wire story. It could be used in other contexts, but it's all part of this overall campaign to advance the Social Security reform agenda.
I was thinking, too, the governor of New York State, Governor George Pataki, the first one to shake his hand, and then we never saw him again. I don't know if he went out to Greece, Athena, if he went back to Albany, but I didn't see any evidence of him there. Maybe Doug can share when he gets away from the backwash and back into communications. We can share with him. As you can see, and we're going to be checking with David Aldridge in a few minutes to get our forecast. You can see some rain out there. Doug, any sign of that backwash? You survived, all right?
Yeah, Don, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
It was very impressive, I guess was the word. Kristen Miranda and I were kind of surprised. We were shuffled inside the hangar here, and then that plane did that 180, and it knocked tripods off of the platform here and blew a lot of the equipment away. And I probably would have been able to hold my ground, but I think Kristen Miranda might have been airborne. So it was good advice, whether it was for security purposes or for our own health, maybe for a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Now, the plane, which I assume you can see now, is taxiing away from us. My thought is that it doesn't have enough runway to take off toward the south, so it's going to have to come back and take off toward the terminal. I'm not an aviation expert, but I'm pretty sure that this 747 needs the full length of that runway to get airspeed.
I was going to say, it's too bad now the fast ferry is not back yet. Is it due back?
Later this week.
Later this week, so nothing, they take off and fly out. Yeah, they're obviously turning now. If they take off and fly out over the lake, they'll be able to take a little look at the port of Charlotte and then circle around and head back to. I'm not sure what the flying time is on Air Force One between here and Washington.
Whatever the president wants it to be, perhaps. I mean, within reason. But Kristen Miranda's been our aviation expert this week, and we are now into one of those downtimes. But the delays, Kristen, you were saying earlier, were minimal for the folks when Air Force One touched down, and we expect it might be the same situation now, that they're going to, planes are going to have to hold their ground for maybe 10 or 15 more minutes.
The airport director was actually very happy with how things went when Air Force One came to Rochester and touched down here at the airport. There were no flights that had to be diverted, very minimal delays. But we did notice when I talked to Terry Slaybaugh, he told me that as soon as the president's motorcade comes back into the fenced area of the airport, that's when all of the commercial flights must stop. It actually stopped quite a few minutes before that, maybe about 10 or 15 minutes before he arrived.
There it goes, Air Force One taxiing down the runway at the Greater Rochester International Airport.
Here it comes.
And getting ready to take off.
Interesting, Don, as we watch the plane leave Rochester for our first presidential visit since 1989 is over. We watch the chase cars follow that plane down the runway. Security right up until the very end.
Beautiful shot from our camera as Air Force One concludes a presidential visit to Rochester that we've been talking about for several days, and it comes and goes in just a matter of a couple of hours. But certainly one that we'll be talking about for a while to come, and certainly the rest of this day on all of our broadcasts. Disappearing into the clouds. I want to thank Mark Guerin for being with us on our coverage for the presidential visit. President Hobart William Smith, but in communications with the Clinton White House and providing a great perspective for us. We really enjoyed all that you had to say for us.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
All right. Also want to thank Doug Embush and Ginny Ryan, who have been out in the elements all day long. Doug out at the airport, and Ginny, Doug, any final thoughts watching that plane depart? Doug can't hear me. How
I'm
about
sorry,
Ginny?
I can, Don. I was letting Ginny. You asked about the plane. I apologize. Yeah, the thing that struck us both here, Kristen Miranda and I, as we watched all this end, it is over. As you know, it took days to prepare for, and it ends so fast. Take a look. Can we just pan off here? There's the Secret Service snipers that have been on the roof for the president's arrival and the president's departure today. They are the last vestige of the extra security here. All the cars are gone. All the vehicles are gone. The police departments are moving out. Just a few one sheriff's department unit still left here. But as soon as the president's plane leaves the ground, Don, it is pretty much over in terms of all that buildup that we've been reporting on since last week.
And the airport returning to normal. Flights should resume fairly shortly, I would assume, at this point.
If they haven't already, the airspace may be open already, Don.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Jenny, some final thoughts out of Athena, where it's been a busy day outside, not only with the weather, but with the protesters out there.
Yeah, my thoughts quickly are turning inside. Can you imagine trying to be a teacher right now at Greece Athena, trying to settle down the students to return to work and school? Life is normal. It won't be a typical day. This was not a typical day when the president comes to visit, but what a great lesson it was for all the students at Greece Athena and the folks who just gathered outside today, took a walk from their homes, grabbed a lawn chair and sat and watched the whole thing unfold. It was interesting to see, and the word and the expression we kept hearing over and over again was, once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
I'm here because it's an opportunity. Whether you agree or not, it's a chance to see some history being made.
I know the day is now when I see our satellite truck pass behind you on the way home. That means everything is wrapped up. Thank you, Jenny, and Doug as well, for all of your help with coverage today. Our thanks to, and I don't want to forget anyone, but Jane Flash and Patrice, who were both inside Greece Athena. Evan Dawson was outside. Kristen Miranda, of course, who was with Doug. All of our outstanding staff of reporters and photographers and producers who have made this a memorable event, outstanding coverage of the visit of President George W. Bush. We are blessed, too, with the editors and photographers behind the scenes here that take events such as today and put them into perspective for us. So we will close now. Thank you for joining us. Reminding you, we will have more complete reports, especially those behind-the-scene reports at 5 and 6 and 11 o'clock tonight. But we share with you a piece that our editor and videographer John Borden has put together, remembering this day, the day that George W. Bush came to Rochester, New York.
This has been a 13 Wham News special report, a presidential visit. Stay tuned for continuing coverage on 13 Wham News and on 13wham.com.